Are you a game master struggling to run a role-playing game? Look no further than The Secret Art of Game Mastery, coming to Kickstarter. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by all the ins and outs of running a role-playing game? Are you a new game master looking to learn the ropes quickly? Are you a veteran that wants some new tips and tricks to take your game to the next level? Well, in The Secret Art of Game Mastery, the latest book from the DM Lair, we took over 100 years of real-world game master experience and transformed it into an easy-to-use book. With advice on planning sessions, engaging your players, making combat more fun, and more, The Secret Art of Game Mastery will become an indispensable tool in your GM toolkit. The two companion books, The Secret Art of Preparation and The Secret Art of Journaling, offer guidance and templates as you craft your campaign and adventures, capture important notes, and plan future plot points to work into your games. Level up your game in any system or genre with The Secret Art of Game Mastery. Click the link on the screen to follow the project and get notified when it goes live.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on? We're joined here today by our illustrious friends, Steven and Mark from Roll for Combat. What's going on, guys?
Well, our Kickstarter's going on, I guess.
All right, sweet. So today we're going to be talking about running Kickstarters, preparing for one, promoting, setting them up, Kickstarter pages, everything and anything about Kickstarters. These guys have run 3 Kickstarters now, 2 completed, 1 is in progress right now. The first 2 did somewhere around 300K each, right? Is it something like that?
Yes, just around that.
Okay,
one
sweet.
did 301 and the other one was like 290 or something.
Cool.
So.
Beautiful. All right. Then I have a couple as well that I've done. So we've done a few Kickstarters. So we'll just be talking about our experience. I'm not an expert on it. I don't know how these guys feel on it, but I mean, we're just going to basically be sharing our experience today with everybody for folks who are interested in it and might get some value out of it. So there you go. Before we jump in, I have to do a couple shameless plugs before we go. The first one is that these guys are running a Kickstarter right now. And there's a link to it down in the chat, like not the chat, the description if you guys want to take a look at it. What is your Kickstarter about? Give us your plug. Give us your pitch.
Mark, you do the plug.
All right.
Mark does.
So our Kickstarter is for World of Battle Zoo Indigo Isles. This is an entire archipelago that you can stick into an ocean in your campaign setting that you run games in, or you can play in our World of Alucard that we're starting to explore in the World of Battle Zoo Indigo Isles. It has ancestry / species / races for 10 different species, 2 of which, if you're playing Pathfinder 2nd edition, already exist, and so we added new heritages for them, whereas in 5e they don't exist, so they are just flat out a new species. It's got new dragons, a new dragon family, which adds up to 15 dragons for Pathfinder, or 20 for 5e. It's got lore adventure hooks for a GM who wants to run this, plus content for a player who wants to play in the setting, which includes gazetteers that are player safe in that they are written by in-world characters who are not going to reveal all the secrets of the setting, in the same way as that famous Eberron campaign setting that right next to like a Warforged player section tells you this guy is secretly a vampire and nobody knows. Like, we don't have any of that kind of spoilers in there, so your players can safely read it while it still gives lots of ideas for the GM to come up with all sorts of adventures there, including, of course, the Adventure Path Jewel of the Indigo Isles, which we have put out before. It is a mammoth adventure. Look at how big this thing is. It's actually only...
It has 3 bookmarks.
Only level 1 to 11. Can you imagine it's that long while being 1 to 11? It's because it has tons of content. And so that's set in the Indigo Isles. So if you have World of Battle Zoo Indigo Isles, it is a companion to flesh out your Jewel of the Indigo Isles adventure path, but there's hundreds of other adventure ideas in Jewel of the Indigo Isles, in World of Battle Zoo Indigo Isles that you can come up with on your own. And that's at kickstarter.rollforcombat.com. Another special thing about it that is kind of different than most Kickstarters do, like one thing we're doing a lot of Kickstarters do is have like a high tier where you can pay more and work with me to get an island into the book. But we also have a system whereby even the lowest pledge that gets a reward, that gets a PDF, you can pitch an island idea. Everybody can. And we will select some of those island ideas from everybody, not just the super high pledged tier, and we'll add them in and credit you for your island idea, and I will write something up. So if you want Mark Seifter to design an island for you, you don't have to just be someone who's going in at the top. You can be anybody who backs this. We want to create a setting and create rules and lore in a world where everybody who is a fan of Roll for Combat can be part of the design team and engage in that process. So we're very responsive in that way and do a lot of outreach. And I think that's something I haven't really seen in a lot of other Kickstarters.
Awesome. I have an island submission for you, an idea for you. So an island that is ruled by a barbarian and inhabited by a race of cats, like adorable cats.
Okay, you want to write it?
You can write it. We actually, I think we have everyone except. I think I forgot to talk to you, but we have.
You never talked to me. That's correct.
I know. Well, you're busy. You're always so busy whenever I'm talking to you. Now we have everyone. Everyone wrote us island. Bob, the world builder, wrote a whole chapter. He didn't just write an island. He wrote a whole chapter.
Yeah.
But we have.
I think Baron said he might be interested.
Baron's gonna write
one. Just on our show.
Yeah, DM's. Professor DM is writing one. Linda Codega is writing one for us.
Derek from Knights of Last Call didn't want to write one because he doesn't like writing things directly, but he sure as heck designed some ideas for one, and then I worked on it from there.
Yeah, we did one live on the air last week with him, and that's in the book.
There we go.
And so
the last cleric on my team, Zach, and my team is going to write an island for you.
There you have it. So that's going to be one from Team DM Lair.
Yeah, it could be barbarians. I mean, the way we've been doing it is, well, for the backers, Mark is going to write them all. That mostly has to do with timing because the book is going to come out in September. The PDFs are coming out right away, and the Foundry module's coming out. So the book is done more or less. But this obviously has
other than the islands,
and just for timing, and and also Mark is Mark. It takes a lot to work with freelancers, and it would have been insane for us to work with 25 freelancers who we have no idea what their quality of the writing is. So we will work with you and come up with your ideas, and then Mark will develop it. And write
I've done that before. About 25 freelancers, and Sunny and my team was the one doing a lot of the conversations with them, and she can tell you that is a very time-consuming job.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. That's why
Whereas we have a plan to make sure it gets out in September. I can confidently tell you, looking at the file, just like as of today, that other than like a few last pieces, that some of which are coming from an artist on Moonshadow Island, and then the chapter that includes the other islands that are going to be written by the backer, or like have ideas from the backers that I write them out. And that introduction, like that's what we have left. Everything else, more or less, is in there, and we've copy fit most of it,
and we're done.
And so I am confident that we can get this out in September. Honestly, the main thing that is going to be the limiting factor is still the back and forth with the backers who backed at the higher tier, because we're going to do a little back and forth with them. Whereas for the people who submit an idea, that's just going to be you submit it, and we take the ones that we already liked and then write those up. So I'm very confident about our ability to deliver on this one based on where we are.
Like yourself,
I gotta take my dog out already. I'm sorry. Keep talking, guys. Okay. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna actually have to leave in like for 5-10 minutes in like an hour or so, but I'll be back because I got something tonight. But other than that, what I was gonna say is that for content creators like yourselves, we either give you the option to either write it yourself and submit it, or like with Derek, who's very creative, but he feels like he can't really write, which is fine. We just worked with him, and Mark wrote it on the air. Actually, he wrote his whole island. So
yeah,
probably put that in the book. In fact, I can put that in the layout.
I think so.
Or you can put it in the layout. I don't need to do it. Oh yeah, Gothic Goliath, sorry, wrote me. Here, Goliath. I'm gonna send you
Yeah. I mean,
the
we've
template. Actually, we have a template, so
we've been in contact with DMs there before about things and
many things.
about many things. So we can
Many,
definitely
many
get an
things.
island from there. Like, gosh, we have so many different streamers who have written an island for this book now at this point.
We have
It's gonna be awesome.
We're getting everyone who we can find. We ask them. Well, because it doesn't have to be that long. It's like a couple hundred words.
It's like 300 words.
Yeah, it's not
for
that
one
big.
of these islands. It's not super long, but in those 300 words, you can create so many plot ideas for something to do on that island. Like we did, we have an episode on our YouTube channel, Roll for Combat, on Roll for Combat Live. You can go back to, it's called Let's Design a World Building Advice and Example. It's like our third to most recent one. It says with Derek, and we just built the island there. And it's only 300 words, roughly, but it has tons of possibilities for this situation involving like an ancient elemental being whose memories are stored within a memory compass, and all sorts of other things. You can check out that stream if you want, or if you don't, that's fine. In the Kickstarter, we're gonna put that island in there.
Yeah, and you can just Kickstarter.rollforcombat.com. You can see the Kickstarter. And this is, I mean, I know a lot of people who watch the show are really into world building and DMing. So this book is designed for you because everything was built. It's for 5e or Pathfinder, but actually 98% of the, I'd say 99% or 98, I'd say 98% of the book is system agnostic. It'll work with anything. I mean, it's just a lot of lore and ideas and concepts. And we have
so if you want to play Powered by the Apocalypse in this setting, you probably can.
Yeah.
I would say it's certainly less than 98% just because of the amount of it that is.
We do have dragons, and we all forgot about the dragon
stats and the ancestry stats, but it's still a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot that you can use no matter what your what system.
Yeah, I mean, I'm currently running a game in Eberron. It's a Pathfinder 2 game in Eberron, and have no problem using an Eberron book. I got to convert gold pieces to silver pieces, and the monsters in the back I have to find substitutes for that are out of Pathfinder 2, but it's not hard to use a campaign setting book in the different game system. It's super easy to do that. Yeah.
Didn't an actual play start recently that was like an Eberron Pathfinder 2 actual play from like Arcane Arcade or something?
I heard
one that has 100,000 subscribers.
I mean, I heard that they were doing an Eberron campaign. I don't know what game system they're using.
Oh, I thought it was Pathfinder 2. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong one. I remember that one of them was just like it was Eberron and PF2, and I was thinking that I remembered someone else was doing that, and that was probably you.
It was me. I know I'm doing it, but Zach is the one who told me about the Arcane Arcade or whatever they're called doing it, so he might know what system they're using. But but it's super easy.
But, we tried. This is an experiment because like we did two.
I googled it. It looks like it's Pathfinder 2.
We did two bestiaries, which we would do well just because they do well. We did the dragon book, which is still like our bestseller probably of dragons, and you can play a dragon of 45 different types of dragons. We did an adventure path, which was kind of an experiment, and we'll see how it goes because it should be in port today. I believe the ship finally came into port, and that means
hooray!
Oh God, thank God!
I'm gonna love having a hard copy of that because I'm running Children of Indigo Island.
I know.
I might be running it this weekend. It depends on who can make it.
This book, it's so ridiculous.
Was that your last Kickstarter? That dragon book?
This is my first. This is our first Kickstarter.
Yeah,
but it took this book 420 pages on Pathfinder, 430 pages, and. It is. I mean, if you see the artwork on this thing, I mean, it is like.
So you're saying that's your first Kickstarter, but it's just getting into port for fulfillment? Is that what you said?
Because it took over a year to get the maps done.
Yep. That's what we had the text in. We were done, and we had certain sections that had been sent out to people. But one of the final chapters, the cartographer, this was delayed for months, and we have one of the top I'm someone who doesn't know the name of that many cartographers, but I know about 3. And one of those 3 is Jared Blando, who also did like the Dragonlance ones for the recent D&D. And that is who did all of our maps, and they have a very distinctive art style that you can tell they were all done by one person. So it wasn't like we were just gonna phone out the last few maps to some other.
The catch-22 kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. I learned a lot of lessons, because that was also I probably should have done smaller adventures rather than let's do our very first one, a 420-page 540,000 word adventure. That'll be my first thing I ever do. So
It's certainly a very intense trial by fire, but we did it, and we got through it. It took a lot of resources and a lot of work.
Yeah,
and
writing
now it's coming out.
Writing adventures are probably the most challenging thing to write. Like almost anything else, it's just like it's almost kids' work. But writing an adventure, that's work.
Well, not only that,
I would say heavy game system, rewriting an economy, rewriting the entire game. One that's rules heavy, not one that's necessarily rules light or narrative. Those sometimes aren't as tricky because you could have more lore in them. But heavy game system is number 1 by a lot. Then adventure is number 2, I think, in terms of that. And then it's a sliding scale beyond that. Whereas something that's like, there's some that are like a lore book, and those are definitely less of a ridiculous crunch. But that's one where it's more like you better have the right people, because if you have the right people, it can just flow and be easier to deal with and just get out. If you don't have the right people, then no matter what you do, it's not going to necessarily be a good product.
Yeah. All right, I want to transition over to my patron shoutouts really quick, and then we're going to jump into the meat of this stream. So everybody who you can see on screen here is our wonderful patrons who help support the content that we create. We produce free 5e resources for folks over on the dmlayer.com. You can get adventures, monsters, puzzles, traps to use in your games, 100% free. Just go over and grab it. Obviously, we have the videos and these live streams that we put out that are free for folks, give tons of resources. And then we have our premium content, which is Layer Magazine. Our patrons get an issue of that every single month. And we now have Layer Magazine in both 5th edition and Pathfinder 2. So if you're running either of those game systems, then Layer Magazine has a bunch of the cool crap, adventures, puzzles, traps, just lots of really awesome stuff. And coming soon, we're going to have both 5th edition and Pathfinder 2 Layer Magazine content in Foundry VTT. That should be rolling out in September. So patrons get a whole bunch of cool stuff to use in their games. Now, these folks on screen right now are our wonderful patrons who bribe me with even more money to read their names out loud. So I'm going to do that right now. Adam B, Alex S, Alexander O, Alexis S, Amanda W, Ambers, Andrew P, Angelique K, Art Soccer, Arutha, Ashley, Black Wolf, Brandon A, Brian O, Cat, Chad K, Christine B, Christopher G, Clay W, Colin W, Contrary Gravy, Dan S, Daz What Up, David S, David W, Derek E, Dominic S, Don D, Doug, Duty K, Dungeon of Terra, Dutch Ed R, Edward B, Edward L, Infrabo, Endorian 72, Eric B, Flux, Forest Brew, Gamian, Gene A, Generic Throwaway, Goliath Cleric, Jag P, Gregory H, Guapo, CVTM, Harlan S, Hard Ungaled, Helltong, HLD, Iron Cascade, It's Beobong, Izzy T, Jackie Pizza, Jacob D, Jake L, Jacob K, James L, Jan F, Jennifer M, Jessica J, Jim B, Jim P, J Long, Joanne B, Joe E, John A, John P, John the Wicked, Jonathan V, Jordan A, Joseph H, Joseph W, Josh M, Josh S, K, Kill Saber K, Kirby, Curry Claw, Laura L, Lionheart, Linda, Matlock, Mama Dragon, Matthew C, Mighty Loki, Mirostal, Mitchell, Mo20s, Moon, Mordakin, Mr. Owl, Mr. Lincoln, Nerd with Glasses, Nicholas S, Nearth, Old Man Mage, Pancakes, Penguin Butt, Pethnick, Pivo, Porkchop Bacon, Psycho John, Puppet Master, Quithimplumthemo, Randy B, Rebar, Renner C, Robert J, Robin B, Russell L, Ryan, Sale R, Sakura Shadow, Shane L, Sheila A, Simfan, Son of a Sofa Man, Soul Naya, Stan the Man, Stephen G, I don't know, it's got an F in there. Stephen G, Stephen T, Steve L, Steve S, Sturm, Technical Tokens, Taryn, Terry V, The Three Quarters Hospital, The Old DM, The New Bad Ombre, Thomas F, Timothy T, TK, Tom T Travels the Lost, Trinity Series, Tyler R, Unalloyed, Undying Warlock, Victoria Q, Vladimir S, Walt O, Wesley K, William C, William D, Joel R, Zachary J, Zombie Trami. Wee. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Okay, cool. Let's hit the meat of this stuff. So, running a Kickstarter. Let's talk about what we know, what we can share with folks. I always think when I'm getting a Kickstarter going or whatever, there's obviously you have to have an idea or a concept of it and stuff. But what kind of things do you think about when you're just thinking of like, what is my Kickstarter going to be about? Like, what am I going to produce?
Well, it was kind of a bit of a nightmare. I'll back up because I will go through how I got into my first Kickstarter.
Okay.
And so what ended up happening is we took over RPG Superstar, and some people might have heard the story already, which is a contest where people can submit monsters, and then the winners are going to be published in a book. And I was going to do the Battles of Bestiary. And I actually designed and finished the book. And my goal was I literally was going to just print up maybe a couple hundred copies and sell it at Gen Con. And this was right during COVID. And then Gen Con was canceled. And then I was like, uh-oh, now what? And it was during the summer of 2021, I think. Yeah. And I was like, or 2000, one of those summers. And then I was like, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I was talking to my friends, these guys, a lot of Blizzard guys who actually ran a lot of Kickstarters, and they're just like, oh, just do a Kickstarter. I was like, really? And then they were talking to me over like course of an hour. I was like driving somewhere and I was talking to them the whole time. And they explained to me how they did it and how it worked. And these guys, one of my friends, he raised like 600,000. I think it was the most popular fiction book in history on Kickstarter. So, you know, I was like, okay, he knew what he was doing. Of course, this was like 6-7 years ago, and things were very different back then. Things are much more competitive now. But and then I was like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. How hard can it be? And then of course my Kickstarter grew, because then I was like, well, you know, I felt like having one book wasn't enough. And I'm going to tell you something I did, which I really shouldn't do, is like I was obsessed with trying to get to that $1 million club. Like there's this club of $1 million. I'm not doing that anymore, by the way. I'm over my obsession. And so I was like, oh wait, let's add more to it. And then Mark had this idea for a dragon book. So I'm like, oh, okay, we'll get more. And then I'm like,
first we were talking about it as like what to do after the Kickstarter, but then Steven added it right in, and I was like, I was thinking a series of small dragon books, and Steven was like, giant dragon book.
Yeah.
In the Kickstarter, it's twice as long as you pitched. And I was like, second. I can write content for something twice as long as I pitched. I can write dragons.
You add this in during the Kickstarter while it was
No. When I was planning it, but this was But to be honest, this was all within like a month. Like so it was like it was literally like we'll do the Kickstarter, and it was like June. And then by, you know, whatever, I was going to do the Kickstarter, and then by July or something, I was doing the kick. Like I did it very quickly. Like I went from, oh, I'm just going to do this to, oh, let's just keep adding more and more, because to get to the $1 million club, you need an average pledge of about $100. So I was trying to figure out a way how to make it more value for your dollar. So I was like, well, one book isn't enough, and then 2 books probably wasn't enough, because, you know, we weren't charging as much for the dragon book. So and then I added a 3rd book, and that was the Jewel of the Indigo Isle book, this freaking monster. And and then it became a 3-book Kickstarter. And the good and bad news is it made 300,000, and we got over 3,100 backers, and it was a gigantic success. And then Battles of Bestiary was pretty much done. But there was thing that we never did, is I didn't know how to convert it to 5e, because everything was written in Pathfinder. So it was a lot of learning on the job. You know, it was a lot of how hard could it be type stuff, because my day job is dealing with, you know, Fortune 500 security system websites. So the stuff I do in my day job is like, you know, brain surgery and heart surgery combined. So I thought, you know, it can't be that hard.
He also never stops doing things and working, which But even Steven, who can do everything at least a little bit that is needed in the process and never stops, couldn't do it all on his own. And that's when he hired me full time. To because we needed at least one more person just to handle the sheer fire hose of content.
You know, you're telling that story and it reminds me probably about 2 months ago or so. Like my team members Zach and I we were only going to do one book for our Kickstarter that's launching on April 8th. We were just going to do one book. And then we had a consultation meeting with Daryl Jones, who's working with us. He also has done a few good Kickstarters, like RPG Essentials, which are some tokens that I backed. And I'm waiting for those. I think they're going to be here sometime soon. I don't know when they're going to be here. But anyway, we were consulting with him, and he said that one of the things he said is that, you know, if you can get your average pledge around $100, that's going to help you a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so we're sitting there, we're like, we have one book, right? The book's going to be for like $30. You're never going to get an average pledge of $100. And so we're like, how can we get a higher average pledge? Well, you can't just charge more for it. You have to create more content, right? And so then we had a conversation, and like in a couple hours of talking, we came up with two more books that we're going to do. You know, and so now we have 3 books. So we did a similar thing where we were trying to, how can we create more value for people to raise our average pledge, you know, so that we can have a bigger Kickstarter, a more successful Kickstarter, you know?
You see, and it gets addictive. But the problem is, and everyone warned us, is that, but then you had to make all that stuff. And here it is 2 years later, and I'm finally finishing it up.
Yeah.
And it's gargantuan. I mean, I estimate at least, and if you include like all the writing and all the artwork and all the time and like everyone, including printing, I mean, for it's 6 books because each one's done twice.
I
mean, we're probably at least like maybe 15.
It was 6 books that
hours.
One of which, like Athena coming out of Zeus's head, spawned a PDF extra book that everyone got for free. Going up to 8 books if you count that.
It actually is 8 books. So, you know, at least like 18,000 hours.
So
what way too much.
Yeah. What was the lesson, I guess, that you guys took away from that people can
don't do that again.
Don't chase the $1 million club. Make a product. And this is especially the lesson, I think, from the second one, which was doing something similar. Make a product that people know what it is. And yes, that means you won't have quite as much of an average pledge. Yes, it means that some people won't want the one thing that's in there. And if you had 3 books, they would have wanted one of the 3 books. But it makes it easier to navigate, because when we were doing all of these, like, it got super complicated that there were that many things that even like, you know, my brother who does analysis on information and things like that for websites and data was like, even I, who in my spare time just for fun make rankings of colleges or countries that I think are good, was having trouble to understand everything that was in your Kickstarter.
Right.
So make it simple so they know what they're pledging on, and then do more Kickstarters if you have more ideas, if you have enough ideas, because otherwise you can get buried. To give another example, in our second Kickstarter, there's one particular thing that's in there, which is a card game, not a collectible card game because you get all the cards you need, but like a card game that is very tied to the RPG version of the Eldamon book that we're putting out for monster training and using elemental powers. And it's a fantastic tool that you can use the cards in the RPG to represent what the powers you have are. They translate back and forth. So if you want to do a duel, RPGs are not always like, I love Pathfinder 2. Pathfinder 2 and 5e are not always the best things for a one-on-one duel, but you could use the card game. It's close enough as a one-on-one duel that was like a game within a game, and it's great. But by virtue of being one of like 16 things that were in that Kickstarter, it was just one of 16 things. Whereas if we did a Kickstarter that was only for a card game that had 13 different elements and play styles, or however many it is, like, that's something people could latch onto, and I think it could potentially make a lot on its own. So just don't let your stuff get buried together out of the chase after like a big high number on one Kickstarter, it's okay to have more than one. I think that's the big lesson.
Yeah, and I think especially if you're doing it for the first time, there's nothing wrong with just having a simple product, a simple thing that you do, to just try to learn how to do it. Like in my first Kickstarter, I had no idea what I was doing, right? For most of the things, it was all brand new to me, and I was just figuring stuff out as I went, and fortunately we just had one book, but we were also trying to do, what did we do? We did dice bags, we had t-shirts, and there were some other little things. But what I learned is that nobody cares about that other little periphery crap, the dice bags and the t-shirts. Nobody gets that crap. Nobody cares, right? Like you're gonna have like a very small segment of like super fans, especially if you're like content creators like we are. You'll have some super fans that'll want the t-shirt and they'll want the dice bag and stuff. Oh, we had like tokens too that we were doing for it. But almost nobody got those things. The majority of people went for the book. Like 90% of people got the book. And so it was like, okay, so the demand tells you what people actually want, right? So for the second Kickstarter, we made it a lot simpler. 2 books, that's it. No stupid t-shirts. It was just like 2 books. We didn't do any, we had add-ons and stuff of other products we had and stuff, but we didn't do anything. It was just 2 big books. That's it. Nice and simple. And the second Kickstarter was, if I recall, a lot easier for us to implement. It was less headache. It made more money. It was more successful. It just focused on, us 2 books, but it was a single product. Essentially, we were taking all of 1 year's worth of Layer magazine and putting it into a book. But there was so much content that we couldn't put it in one book because it would have been almost 800 pages long. So we have 2 books. One's about 400. There's about 350 pages. And so that's why it was 2 books. But it was conceptually, it was just one product. So I think we simplified it, made it a whole lot simpler, and that made my life at least way simpler. Just from like an implementation standpoint.
We have these are beautiful. We have these all the Eldamon, we have like little minis for them, and
we have plushies. They're behind Steven.
Oh yeah, the plushies. These things came out ridiculous.
These are so good. Everyone I show them to,
freaking good.
It's just like they can't believe that I was involved in creating an IP that has such good plushies.
I know.
And my parents were like,
these things. It's crazy.
That's cool.
My parents were like, where can I get them for
you get them on
for your nephew? And I was like, there's a limited number, and if you didn't get more of them from the Kickstarter, that's how many there are.
And
yeah,
I'm nuts. I did this, but there's other reasons. I won't get into that right now, because hopefully if the Eldamon work out, then these will become part of that. So this was a little bit more advanced marketing. Like I think I shouldn't have done it quite so early. I went a little too advanced. And also I thought it was going to be a little bigger than it was and things like that. So my lesson that is learned is don't go crazy, but there's a counter to that lesson, is that I also came up with the Year of Monsters out of nothing. And that just was, I don't even remember where that came from. Again, it came with, I wanted to have 3 items on our last Kickstarter, and we had 2. We had Battles of Bestiary, Strange and Unusual, and Eldamon.
Right. And I pitched Year of Monsters as a type of, I pitched in general to do more ancestries, and then we worked together back and forth to refine, because you had several monsters that were on our initial list right from the get-go. In fact, you had already kind of been like, I want to do a rock person, which became the Cragrak in Indigo Isles, and an ooze person super early on, even before this. So I was like, well, remember, Steven, there were some ancestries you wanted to do. There's some that I want to do. And I think we could do more ancestries because the dragon was popular. And then we worked it back and forth into this Year of Monsters idea, the format of which I think was very much based on your ideas for where we could go with it. I'm very excited about that format overall of one monster a month, just kind of gradually getting more to...
It's like Lair magazine, except we do it with Ancestry. It's actually very similar. You have a monthly magazine. Ours is, we have a monthly Ancestry, but these are very deep, like an average race or Ancestry. Well, in D&D, an average race is like a page, maybe 2. In Pathfinder, it's 4 or 6 pages. Ours are 7,000, 10,000 word ancestries. So they're they're very deep.
Yeah.
And we give a ton of options. And quite frankly, this thing has been a super home run. Like people freaking love it. And
so you publish that every month?
Yeah.
Who does it go
every
to?
month.
Yeah.
Who gets it?
People who back the Kickstarter. You just
Yeah.
we add
Okay.
it. We just added. They get a new.
A lot of
get a
people
new
have asked
PDF
us
every month.
for a subscription because they'd rather do it that way. But like, there's a lot of ways that you have to mess around to figure
I'm still
out how to
figuring
get
it
that
out
to
the
work.
best way to do it.
So what
Yeah.
Kickstarters do they back to get that every month?
Well,
So
you can get it on our website too, on Battles of Bestiary. It's just a one-time. You either buy. It's not a subscription. It's like a one-time thing. So for like $60, you get 12 ancestries or races in PDF form, one a month every month throughout 2023.
Okay.
So it's basically
Yes.
what does that break down to? Like, it's breakdown.
That's like $5 per.
month. Yeah, so
But they
$5
pay
per
it's all one up front. Our second
all one up
Kickstarter
front.
included it, Luke. So to your question,
Yeah.
our second one, the one that had even more than the first one,
Yeah.
one of the things that it had was those 26 books, which is 24 books, and then a compilation book that expanded them even more, which, to be honest, we maybe shouldn't have done, but that we did. And those 26 books are one per month, and then a final compilation that has all of them in it, are super popular with our fans, and therefore we recently announced a Year of Legends for 2024.
Today we announced the Year of Legends.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was sort of hiding in the back of the Kickstarter.
It was a stealth launch, but today we officially announced.
But it was officially announced today, a Year of Legends, which has an evil eye, which is like a giant eye ancestry that you can play that has special beams and negative effects you can put on people, and a cerebrophage with a nautilus head that can eat people's brains. Are on
tentacles coming out of their face,
plus gargoyles and giants and more. So we have not kickstarted that one yet, obviously, but we have announced that 2024 will have this as continuation. And just doing one ancestry per month has been really cool, and I like it because it gives something exciting for people to talk about each month. The thing that I found the most satisfying about it was actually one of the ancestries. We asked people what were their favorites so that we could figure out the order by clustering people and making sure that there wasn't certain subcategory of people who all of their favorites were coming last. And one of the ones that had some of the lowest scores was actually Sidhe, which are the fairy folk from the fairy realm. And however, when we put it out there, it was actually very popular once it was released. And I got some feedback that I found particularly profound, where someone was like, I was not looking forward to this at all. I didn't really have any desire for it, but I got all of the ancestries because so many other of them were home runs. And since I had it, I read it, and I love this, and it's my favorite one.
Yeah.
Because when I write something that people I already knew that they liked, and they're like, oh, I definitely was going to like anything you did that was a slime, and I liked the slime that you did, that's gratifying because I know I did it right for the fans. But to get someone to be like, I didn't even necessarily really want this, but now it's my favorite one, means that I really connected with someone.
I'm going to give you a secret. I didn't even want it. And because I didn't even know what it was, but I let Mark do it. And then when I was laying it out and reading it, I was like, oh my God, this thing is awesome. I loved it. I was like, this is great.
I think the whole idea of being able to produce monthly content and work on content monthly takes a lot of that load off, because if you're trying to just do one big, huge book or one big deliverable, then there's a lot of upfront work that goes into that, right? And then you finally get it out there. But there's a lot of value in being able to just produce something like one ancestry a month or one issue of Layer magazine a month, and then at some point you decide that you want to put it into a compilation where, okay, this was just PDFs, but now we're going to put it into a big book and then kickstart that or something.
We did pre-write it, almost all of it, last year, and this.
I mean, it was over time, but I did get
ahead of time.
I did get up to 11. I think of them.
The art was all done. The art was done by last year.
We did the art in advance, and I got, I think, 11 out of 12 of them done by
one
February.
still hasn't been written.
By February or something like that. And I still haven't done the 12th one yet because I wanted to get hardcore into the other 2 books that were part of that Kickstarter. It was a giant Kickstarter. But we did cluster it up because there is especially if you have a conversion into a different edition, which we do, and a Foundry VTT version, there is sort of a process that has many steps in the pipeline. And so we wanted to load up certain stages of the pipeline so that it would just always be smoothly moving to the next steps in the pipeline when they were ready for it.
Yeah. I want to get back to this idea of the $1 Million Club, because there was one Kickstarter in particular. I think it was in the D&D area, or it was D&D like, adjacent or something. But it was a tabletop RPG game or system or supplement or something. I forget the name of it. But what I was being told is that it did over 1 million, over 2 million. It did super, super, super well. It was like really high. But the person who ran it had like paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for ads and various influencers to like do ad spots and stuff. So they had like, I don't know how much, hundreds of thousands of dollars into advertising to be able to get to that level too, So I kind of want to come back to the idea of like promotion and marketing, and what we've done, to promote our material, to get the word out, let people know about it, and what our viewers can do. And I want to approach it not just from like, obviously both of us have YouTube channels, right? And we have people that come and listen to us and stuff. So for us, it's kind of like, yeah, we can just say it in our videos and people will hear it, but not everybody has that advantage. So I want to talk about like as comprehensive as we can on the topic of promoting and marketing the Kickstarter, because I think there's a probably a false belief, or some people might not understand, that if you just create a Kickstarter and launch it, but you don't have any promotional marketing stuff, it's probably not going to go anywhere. So I want to hit that topic.
Yeah, like, so my friend John Statz, who did his Kickstarter, which is I learned from him. So he did the WoW Diaries. You can look it up. It's actually a great book. He was the first 3D designer ever hired by Blizzard, and he did pretty much all the dungeons in World of Warcraft, and did like the world building of dungeons. Like, he built it, literally. He designed it and built it. So he, like, if you're playing World of Warcraft, especially in the early years, all of those dungeons were his. And he wrote a 300-page book about the experience leading up to the launch of World of Warcraft with extreme detail.
Yeah.
And it is an insanely good book. And he thought, now this is a while ago, this is like 7-8 years ago. And he thought, because that's when Kickstarter was just starting, like, if you throw a Kickstarter on, it was just doing gangbusters. And he thought, you know what, we'll just say it's WoW and this, and I'm just going to throw it out there. And he put it out there, nothing. Like, no one backed it.
Wow.
And he pulled it. And then I was like, oh man. Yeah. So he hired a PR company, and he was on every show. He was everywhere, and he was just doing as much promotion and going and doing everything, and he was constantly promoting. And it did $600,000 or $700,000, and
Nice.
He had no add-ons.
Right.
He had nothing. There was no add-ons. There was no stretch goals. It was like, this is the book.
Right.
That's it. And it still did that well. And I always told him, dude, if you added stretch goals and stuff, you could have easily done $1 million. Like, you could have probably done $1.5 million. But he didn't want to deal with it. But anyhow.
How much did he spend in advertising, though, to get on shows and do all that stuff?
Not that much, but that was also a different time.
Okay.
And it was still when Kickstarter was kind of new.
Okay.
And then I did what everyone else did about 2 or 3 years ago, because every single one of these 5e Kickstarters was doing like hundreds of thousands. And I'm like, I could do that. Like, how are they doing so well? Like, I couldn't understand how they were doing so well. And when I started out, my mailing list was no one. I had a podcast, and I had connections, and I did get RPG Superstar, and I did have Paizo help me out. But to be honest, it was really hard. I still don't know exactly how I did so well. To be honest, if you ask me how it did so well, I'm not exactly sure. And I wish I did. I wish I knew exactly why, because I did a little bit of everything. I did advertising on Facebook. I was on every show imaginable. I had Ask Me Anythings on Reddit. I had Paizo promote the Kickstarter. I got Ginny D to do tons of advertising. And this was before Ginny D was famous. Like, I got her right before she was turning into what Ginny D her.
She was famous, but she wasn't as
She was
this
famous,
whole
but
step up from after
yeah,
doing that
she was
Critical Role cosplay
right
and being the
before she
WotC
got
spokesperson for a few products.
right. She was right before she got mega famous because I was able to sign her not only to do monthly ads for us for like a year, but she even helped design one of the dragons in our dragon book. So, I got her to help out, and I just was relentless and just did as much promotion, and most of it was not paid. That was the secret also, is that I did as much as possible, not necessarily for free, but tried to get as much, because to be honest, I did do some paid and some of it was very expensive, and you can track to see how many people click on the links.
Right.
And the I'd get like 5 people from one of these like $3,000 ads. I'd be like,
and some of the unpaid ones
forget it,
gave more people than that, or at least seemed to.
Yeah.
I've done that's the interesting thing, because I've done paid influencer advertising too. Like I've done some paid. So for Layer Magazine, I've done a couple paid spots. Almost no return. The ROI is non-existent.
Yeah.
And then for one of my Kickstarters, I think it was Into the Fae, I did some paid ads, and I recouped my money. I at least got my money back plus a little bit. You know what I mean? And then I know I was talking to another friend of mine who did a Kickstarter, and he has a really small YouTube channel. Like I think it was around maybe 20,000 subs at the time that he did the Kickstarter. So his videos were getting, I don't know, they weren't getting tons of views on each video, but he did tons of influencer paid advertising, and his Kickstarter did like 250,000. So it did super well. And so I think he was mostly reliant on influencer marketing. So it's interesting. It seems like it's a mixed bag of hit or miss with some of the different things that you do,
I think it's random. And, so now what I do, so we're on our third. So we're doing a new model. I'm just going to do, and there's various reasons, but I'm going to try to just do one book at a time. So one thing we do, and you and I have been talking about this offline, Luke, is that Foundry and I are very close. Like I've done things on Roll20. I've done things on other systems. I'm talking to Alchemy. I'm talking to everyone. But Foundry, we're buddies. Foundry and I are best friends. We do a ton of work with them. And one of the main reasons is a gigantic, I'd even use the word gargantuan number of our backers use Foundry.
Right.
Not a small number, a gargantuan number.
Yeah, well, you're primarily PF2, so that totally makes sense.
We are.
Right?
No, we're 50-50. Our books, people always ask, like, how many of each do you sell? It's 50-50. It's literally 50.
Which is a higher percentage of PF2 than you would expect based on the size of the two markets, which shows that we have a very strong showing among PF2, but also like a sizable number of fans of 5e, and we make sure to prioritize both of them in terms of getting out top quality content.
But our 5e Foundry, 5e Roll20 numbers aren't that much. They're not great. It's not like, for Pathfinder on Roll20 you're selling 50 copies, and then for 5e you're selling 500 copies. It's more like, no, you sell 50 copies of Pathfinder and 80 copies of 5e. It's like, it's more, but it's not like that much more.
This is Roll20.
Whereas the Foundry numbers are very high.
They're insane.
And they're especially high among the Pathfinder 2 players. I mean, you can just see on our Kickstarter, if you look at how many people backed the different tiers, because there are now tiers with Foundry in it. And it's basically around half of everybody backs with Foundry.
I mean, I don't know. Foundry, it seems like Foundry's really good, and I think more and more people are going to go to it. Roll20.
It's really good. Their model is, first of all, the product is fantastic. One of the reasons I liked Foundry, because I'm a software developer by trade, and I know how they built it, and I saw their methodology, and I saw this, and I know how these other guys build it, and I'm not going to give them grades, but I'm going to give the Foundry guys an A+. Like I saw this, I was like, they know what they're doing. Like this is A++ work for the way they manage their code base.
Right.
And I'm like, if they're that good, then this is going to be successful, because that's insanely hard.
Dude,
And
when I first started running games in Roll20 and stuff, like my first thought was like, this has got to be like spaghetti code with like 2,000 line if then statements and stuff. Like, man, come on.
it's a 10-year-old code base,
Yeah,
and I will
uh-huh.
say that.
And
And the Foundry
they're
one,
probably not refactoring very often. They're just kind of like, yeah,
mm,
whatever.
it's old, and I know it was built in Ruby on
Yeah.
Rails. I know the whole thing,
Oh, okay.
and and the 5e one's much more robust, and they've been updating it. They are updating the code base,
Yeah.
but the Foundry code base is light years ahead of everyone else, and
Mm,
they're always updating it constantly. They're constantly updating that code base,
yeah.
and it's getting better and better. And quite frankly, it's also easier to develop on because it uses HTML. And right now, like if you want to develop in these other programs, you got to use their tool sets. So you're limited by their tool sets.
Yeah.
I'm limited by HTML, which has no limits. It's incredibly fast and easy to develop on Roll20. So
Foundry?
we
You mean Foundry?
Foundry and
Yeah.
Foundry. So we develop all of our products for Foundry as well as books. So we always release. So right now we've been doing things PDF and Foundry, or PDF, Foundry, and a hardcover. And if you're in Pathfinder, we also release it for Path Builder, which is the number one tool people use to build their ancestries and build their classes, and that's free. It's part of the deal. So you get to.
Mm,
So we give you. So if you back like Year of Monsters, and then it's like, oh great, you gave me a slime, but how the heck am I going to build the slime because I use this online tool? I'm like, well, here you go.
yeah.
Just load it in, and now you have all the slime feats and everything's in there. And that's another secret, is that we give you all the tools so that you can use our books as easily as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, but so back on the idea of the promotion and marketing thing.
Oh yeah, sorry.
For our very first Kickstarter, um, I think all I did was just tell people through my YouTube channel. I think that's all I did. I no, you know what? I did have backer kit marketing during while
I
the
did backer kit marketing
yeah
too.
while the campaign was live. I had backer kit marketing, and then
Yes.
for my last Kickstarter, Layers and Legends, we had backer kit marketing as well. And then for this one, we're using backer kit pre-launch. They have like lead gen that they'll do before launch, and then we're also going to be having backer kit marketing during launch. And we're also for this Kickstarter, I think I might have done it for the last one too, but we also have some YouTube pre-roll ads that are rolling too. Like, we made ads, basically video ads. We paid somebody from the UK to do like a voiceover for us so that we'd have a nice cool voiceover, and then we're throwing up videos on YouTube, which I don't know, it's really hard to attribute where some of these page follows come from, or your leads come from. So I mean, I know that our page follows are going up by like 50 a day right now, roughly, with sometimes we have huge spikes, but so we're doing a variety of things, to just try to. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to do two things primarily leading up to the Kickstarter. The first one is page follows, right? So statistically, about 25% of the people who follow your page will back your Kickstarter. And I have two previous Kickstarters that I can look at those stats, and one was at 23%, one was at 25%, So I know that like my goal, what I wanted to have was 10,000 page follows. That's never going to happen.
God.
Never going to happen. If we get, we'll probably,
Not even tells the Valiant of that.
yeah, no, we might get close to 4,000, at the rate we're going right now, which would be pretty cool. But but my point is that you can count on about 25% of your follows backing your project, right? And so that'll kind of give you an idea of like maybe a goal that you should. And when I say you, I'm not talking to you guys. I'm just talking to our viewers,
Yeah,
right?
I know. One.
Something you can go for trying to get the page follows. What we did for this Kickstarter 3 months prior, back in, was it April, May, June, July? I think it was April. Back in April, May or April, we started promoting this Kickstarter. We started talking about it in our videos and stuff like that, to just start getting the page follows, which means we had to have the project approved, right, by Kickstarter to get that page where people could follow us. So we started promoting it like several months beforehand. But the big push for marketing was within this last month, where we started going really hard. It was recommended to us by Backer Kit, who has experience in this, so, and they make a commission, so it's in their best interest for our project to do as well as possible. they told us that you really want to have the biggest push about a month beforehand. 4 weeks to 3 weeks beforehand is when you want to have the big, huge push, And so that's why their lead gen starts then. And we're starting to send messages out to our email, which is another part about, we're talking on the topic of promotion and marketing, having an email list, right? That you can send out stuff to. You guys have a big email list. We have an email list as well. So having those are just leads, right? Of people that you can reach out to and talk about, hey, we have this project, And so our goal was get a bunch of page follows, and then, be able to tell people on our email list, obviously, but also just, telling people organically through our videos and stuff, about it. So, but that was like, and then the paid marketing too. So that was kind of like, the approach overall for this Kickstarter, and trying to get as big of a lead up front as possible. And I think that's something else too, is that, how well your Kickstarter does in like the first 2 days is the determinant of how well it's going to do, period. I don't know how you get. Go ahead.
I'm not doing nearly as much as you. I mean, I was doing that, and I don't know. I've been doing my own YouTube. I've been doing my own Facebook ads for the last couple of years. So I didn't do the backer kid marketing, and the thing with the backer kid, they get a percentage, but also like if they whatever they do, you have to pay them. Like it's not free. Like they do $10,000 worth of marketing, you pay $10,000 plus percentage. So it can be risky. So it's I don't know, like
but you have to pay for the cost of the ads, and then they get a commission for people who back you. So if nobody backs you, they don't get a commission. But you do have to pay for the cost of ads regardless. So if you have to cancel your
and
project,
that cost of ads could be like, for my first one, it was 5 figures. I mean, it was very expensive. It wasn't free, so and I felt I couldn't tell if it was worth it or not, because, and that was the other thing, after the Kickstarter was over, you thought, oh God, I was so happy, except, oh well, here's your bill, for your Kickstarter ads, and then here's your Kickstarter, like everything was coming out, and before you know it, it was like tens of thousands of dollars are leaving your Kickstarter.
Your Kickstarter ads came out to be 5 figures, like the cost of Kickstarter ads. Is that what you said?
I believe so. Yeah, maybe it was a little less, but it was a lot.
Gosh, wow, yeah, that's crazy. I mean, we calculate our,
but I didn't know. I was starting out. I had zero.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And I felt like it was, and you know what? It did in retrospect, did very well. And now we have a huge base, and it's a little easier, and so I'm a little bit more, not lenient, but I'm more responsible with our time and money. And the other thing I've been trying to do, especially after the OGL fiasco, is I'm trying to build relationships, because I feel that, and you and I have talked about this, that I think it means more if I'm gonna say your books are awesome and we work with you and we know who you are and we trust you, and you say the same thing for us. I think that's a better use of time and effort, and to build up relationships with other trusted names in the industry, than to just throw out random ads. I think you need both.
Yeah.
So I think you actually need I think you need everything, but I think it's a better use of time, in my opinion, than to like making endless ads and hoping and praying, because it's also they're expensive, man.
Yeah, they can get expensive. Yeah, on the idea of ads and paid advertising, there's something called a ROAS, right? Return on ad spend, and there's I didn't know anything about that, and then I had to figure out what that meant and how to calculate it, because if you don't calculate your ROAS properly, then you end up spending more on advertising than you actually make from it, and you have to so I think our ROAS was, for this project, I think it's about 3.5, but we told Backer Kit to hit, no, I think it's actually 3, but we told them 3.5, because what I found is that they always underperform by a little bit. So like if I tell them 3.5, I'll get 3, and 3 is where we more or less break even. So as long as we get like, $1 for every $3 that we get in pledges. I mean, sorry, if we spend $1 in advertising, but we get $3 in pledge money, we'll break even, because of all of the costs that go inside the Kickstarter. You know what I mean? So that's what the 3-to-1 ROAS is basically. So, but I always kind of hedge my bet and play it safe a little bit. You know what I mean? Because the last thing I want to do is spend a crap ton in advertising, punch the numbers after the fact, and be like, I actually lost money in advertising. You know, that's just horrible.
You know, at the last few years, because I was like so excited, and then you get a bill for 5, 10, 15,000.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah. You know, ours is probably
it wasn't so much fun after.
Yeah.
I'm like,
well, ours is probably about that much too. Yeah, ours is probably in 5 figures as well. Yeah, that makes sense.
See, once you figure it out, and it's not so much fun, right?
But you know, but when I look, I mean, agreed. But at the same time, when I got say $45,000 in pledges and I pay them $15,000, it's like, well, that's probably worth it. And there's also the concept too of like establishing a larger base of backers and a larger base of people who've bought your product. Those are people that if you fulfill your product and they're pleased with the results, the quality of it, those are people that are going to come back next time, you know, and you won't have to pay to acquire them as a customer because they're already going to have backed your Kickstarter, you know, and you'll be able to message them and tell them about your next one and all that kind of good stuff, you know. So even if you break even on it, I think there's still an added value of having an additional customer, somebody who might back your project in the future, another project, right? Or buy other products that you create. So I think there's some value there too, you know.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's hard to know. I mean, it's like it's a bit of a nebulous thing, and it's a chicken and egg because like my Kickstarters, the first ones did really, really well, and like why? I mean, I had everything you just said. I had you know, BackerKit doing our advertising. I had millions of it was one of these, it's hard to know because I did so much. Is it everything? Is it one thing? And it's tough. And the biggest takeaway I would say is if you're going to do a Kickstarter, you better just really get ready to like being everywhere at once because it's gonna suck.
I mean, literally one of my team members, a big part of his job is just babysitting our Kickstarters. I call it babysitting because there's so much involved in it, you know what I mean? It's a crazy amount of work. That's Zach, Goliath Cleric. He's the dude. So but I think that's one of the points too, right? Is that a lot of the things that you're doing, it's almost like you're just shooting in the dark. You know, you're throwing out all these different types of advertising, you're talking to different people, you're doing all of this stuff, and it's hard to tell what's actually driving the results, you know, because the metrics, they're hard to come by. Like there are referral links and stuff, so I can definitely, like for instance, if I have one of my YouTube buddies do some advertising for me, I'll pay him, right? But he does some advertising for me, and then I give him a special referral link that'll then hooks into Kickstarter, and Kickstarter will literally tell me how much revenue or pledges he drove through his referral link. And so it'll give me a direct number, and I can be like, okay, well, I paid him $3,000 and I made $4,500 in pledges. So, okay, I more than broke even on that, you know, except that, right, there's cost of printing books, cost of all these other things, the artwork and stuff like that. So did you actually break even? No,
you probably lost money on that.
If you spent $3,000 and you only made $4,500, you lost money. Absolutely,
significantly.
You would have to probably make about $9,000 to $12,000 off from that $3,000 ad spend to break even, and that was the ROAS number I was talking about, right? So you have to make a whole lot more in actual pledges than you spend on ads to break even. So, but my point is that one of my points is that like when you're doing it for the first time, which probably people watching this are considering doing it right for the first time or improving upon it, is that there's a lot of it that's just nebulous and unknown, and you're just feeling your way in the dark and trying to figure it out, you know. So I've even now the third one, I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing half the time, you know, just trying to do the best you can.
Yeah, it's hard to say exactly what actions you took have what results, except for, like you said, if you have referral links that you can directly do the analytics. But there are some things that you can check out. Like, for example, there's like the accepted curve for Kickstarters is that many Kickstarters, especially if you're new and nobody necessarily knows about you other than what you're doing, will do like about a sixth of their overall money on day one, and then another sixth on day two, and then it's like kind of constant, maybe a little bit more at the end. Not some giant spike though, like some people expect. That's sort of one of the myths of Kickstarter. And so if you do differently than that, if you make like extra at the beginning, that means that your pre-advertising was very effective and that it got a relatively high number of people to back you right away, or that your existing base was strong, especially if you haven't done a ton of Kickstarters, then you do a big spike at the beginning compared to later on. Whereas if you follow that curve more so, then you know, well, mathematically at least, I'm more like the average Kickstarter curve. And if you start picking up faster later on than that, and you actually get more money overall than just 1/6 at the beginning, and you only have maybe 20% in the first 2 days, that probably means something you were doing later on caught on. You might even be able to check their numbers to see if there was a spike because maybe someone shared it on social media who was famous and just a lot of people saw it from that, or like some disruption may have suddenly expanded your audience in a way that you didn't expect. So if you get something that looks like a very typical Kickstarter curve, then you probably were normal and didn't have anything that was that unusual. But if you look unusual, you might be able to try to come up with an explanation for why.
Yeah. That traditional curve is like depressing, because this is the emotional roller coaster that I've gone on every single time I have a Kickstarter. All right, first day or two, it's like, holy crap, look at the pledges. And then it's like almost a flat line for like 25 days. And you're just like, oh my gosh, what is going on? You know, and then I've always had a bump at the end. You know, it's never like a third bump, but it's always a good, healthy bump, you know. But you have
you get a little bit more at the end. People are expecting a big spike at the end, but you get a little bit more.
Yeah, but it's amazing. The first 2 or 3 days is amazing. Like I think on our last Kickstarter, we were at 120,000-ish or so after the first 3 days, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Woo! And then all of a sudden it was like, and I was freaking out. Like, what happened? It's dying. It's over. You know, like why is it not growing? And then it slowly grew. And then it had a spike at the end, but it's that emotional roller coaster where it's like, what is going on? You know?
Yeah, so. I was doing really well until recently, and then that's why you're like, how you feeling? I'm like, because it's like it does really well, and then it's like it's hard to not like feel bad
when you're on that plateau part. It's always like, what's going on? But at the beginning, it's always like, yes, especially because ours, I think due to Steven's incredible apparatus at getting the word out ahead of time, had even a higher percentage that pledge early. Part of that is also, Steven, you have like fantastic incentives for the first 48 hours that are just cool physical products that you get at the beginning that can entice people who are on the fence to pledge early.
Oh, right. I give out now. So I have gotten better at this, by the way. Is with the new incentives is that, so for example, like I had these, so this is interesting. So from my last Kickstarter, I had these dice boxes made up, these Roll for Combat dice boxes, and they came in 2 colors. They came in black and they came in brown. And I got them, and they even have our logo, and they're really good. And these things are fantastic. I got a manufacturer, I got it all worked out. They came in very quick. They even came in early. I was like, this is as good as it can be. And then I was like thinking about doing another incentive. And I was like, you know what? I already got one. I'm just going to redo this one because I already have everything set up. The manufacturer, I'll get it done quick.
Yeah.
And there's 2 colors. And if you already had the black one for the first one, you can get the brown one for this one, or you can get the same one again.
Yeah.
And that's something else I'm getting better at, is that rather than redoing minis, because I had minis for my first one and my second one, oh my God, it was so much work. And I'm just like, and no one, you know how many people buy the minis after the Kickstarter's over?
How many?
Zero. like no one buys them. It's insane. It's like, so I've given up. I'm like, okay, what do we offer? I'm going to show you what we offer. We offer that dice box, which everyone likes, and people could really actually use it, which is important because I want to give out things, and cloth map. Which, if you're going to buy a world guide, and it's good size, it's 14 inches by 11, you'll use this. Like this is something that you can use. Is
Yep.
it stupid like a I don't know, I'd say like a pink colored dice. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
How many dice I have? Do you really need another pair of dice?
I don't
Not
need
really.
any dice.
I don't
But-
need a dice.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, on the other hand, people
People do like
willing
free
to
stuff.
throw down so much money
People
for
do
a
like
set
free
of dice
Yeah, no, you're right. You're wrong. You're
Mhm.
not
for
wrong.
terrain that
You're-
they won't for
You are
like
not wrong.
they won't for like a book that took thousands of hours to make, but they'll be like, oh yeah, this piece of terrain that
I
you
mean,
put out
I
is worth more
backed
than
a
that.
project not too long ago that was premium quality dice, and I think it was $100 for one set of dice. So I mean, yeah, I
Yeah,
believe it.
isn't it
you know?
wild that you
Yeah.
might have paid more for the set of dice
Right? Yeah.
than you did
Uh-huh.
for all of the labor that went into like making the entire game system
Uh-huh.
that you're playing with for decades. It's just
Yeah,
it's true.
It's crazy.
But I still
Yeah.
think Steven is right because most of the people who back those dice back just for dice. They're not like
Correct.
also
Yeah.
gonna be
Yeah.
getting your dice on there
Yeah.
unless there's like something about it that makes people want to get that particular set of dice. Like Paizo just put out Rage of the Elements, so they have elemental dice that one of their partners, I think, are doing a Gen Con that's like, one for each of the elements.
Yeah.
So like fire and all those. And so people are like, ooh, that's a hook.
Yeah.
Whereas just dice that are sort of themed after your thing is a harder sell than just a flat out dice Kickstarter that's only about the dice.
Yeah,
I
so
think that's what the bottom line is.
Yeah, I want to get in here. We had a wonderful super chat from Mo, $100. Thank you, Mo, dude. I appreciate that. He and I were hanging out last night on our patron hangout chat. And Squirty Pie is here. Mo said Foundry VTT modules coming to DM layer. Super excited. Thanks, Luke and team. Yeah, I just announced to my patrons today in a post that we're getting the Foundry VTT modules for Player Magazine content and stuff. So that should be coming in September. So I'm excited for that. And this cat's going crazy. She's like pushing my monitors and stuff. All right, we're gonna take. I'm gonna play a little video here. The Barbarian has something to say about Indigo Isles, and we'll be back momentarily.
Hi,
right.
Barbarian
Might not
here. Are you a game master looking for an amazing game world rich in lore and strange new creatures to run your D&D or Pathfinder 2 game in? Well, look no further than the world of Battlezoo, Indigo Isles. The world of Battlezoo, Indigo Isles contains everything you need to set sail for adventure. Except maybe a boat. You're probably gonna have to buy your own boat. But the book itself contains a detailed overview of key locations on the Indigo Isles, dozens of story hooks and NPCs, and details on the ancient spiritual religion known as the Eld. Wow, that sounds spooky. Don't forget to take your weapons with you. You'll also get 15 new dragons as monsters, featuring the entire family of wild dragons from the Battlezoo Ancestry's Dragons book to help you murderize your players' precious characters. And you'll get gobs of new magic items to make them feel like they might have a chance. But they won't, will they? What's more, there are tons of new character options, 10 new ancestries, and new archetypes and subclasses and heritages, and seven familiars native to the Indigo Isles. Remember, the world of Battlezoo Indigo Isles comes in 2 versions, one for D&D 5e and another for Pathfinder 2. Oh yeah, and they're releasing the PDF right after the Kickstarter ends. If you'd like a new fantastical world to amaze your players with, click the link below and back the Kickstarter today. Oh, the video ended.
The video ended.
It ended. Yeah. There we go.
All right.
We have an empty chair.
Are we back?
We're back. Yeah, we're back.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back from the video.
All right. I think Steven had to step away for something.
Yeah, he had to step away for a few minutes, he said. So
Okay.
he took the video as the opportunity to do it. Maybe he's walking his dog or something.
All right. My dog is wandering around now, too. That's usually not a good sign. All right, so let's talk about preparation. Like, just getting ready for the Kickstarter. Like, what kinds of things are you doing ahead of time, preparing, before you actually launch?
So what you want to make sure you have in advance for your Kickstarter is you need to figure out the tiers. You need to figure out the information you're going to give. Make sure to have people who don't know your Kickstarter as well as you do check it to make sure that it's easy to understand the information you present about the Kickstarter, and that it's enough that people get what you're doing without being too much, so that they're just like, I can't read all of this. I don't know what this is. Clearly present what the tiers are for each of the tiers, and have that in advance. Some art, hopefully, to make it pop out. Make sure you have a video ready to go. In our case, we have that cool Barbarian video that is one of our videos that we have for our Kickstarter. And you may want to brainstorm some stretch goals, or at least figure out what you're going to be doing in terms of stretch goals, so that you're ready and you don't get sort of like surprised by like, oh wow, we made more than we thought, and we got funded immediately, and now we don't know what the stretch goals are. Like, try to figure it out, because if you scramble for stretch goals and you're not very regimented about it, you might wind up doing the stretch goal equivalent of what Luke was talking about earlier with advertising, where you advertise and you don't make back your return of investment, where you stretch for a goal that is more expensive than the entire distance between your main amount and that stretch goal, if you see what I mean. So like, if it's like, hey, if you add, we get $5,000 more, we'll add like these 30 pages to the book or something like that. But it's like, well, okay, but that's going to cost, for the words from the author alone and the artist's art, is going to cost more than that.
Right. And then
that's not even counting printing the book.
Correct. The book is no longer,
other people taking certain
the book
cuts.
is going to cost more to print. Shipping costs are going to be a little bit higher. Like, there's a lot of, like, making the book bigger is like, there's a lot of additional costs that go into that. You have to like think that through. And that's one of the things about the stretch goals that can be difficult, right? Because if you have a stretch goal that's adding more content, well, okay, so you made $25,000 more because that was your stretch goal. Let's say you went from 100,000 to 125,000 and your stretch goal was add more content. Well, that's great, but I think this is one of the things that like people that back Kickstarters expect those stretch goals, but on the back end, just because I made 125,000 instead of 100,000 doesn't mean that there's extra room in my budget to create a whole bunch more content. It just doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? Because I have like printing costs and stuff like that, So,
when I was saying you could wind up spending more money on the art and like the external authors, that's not even counting my time or Steven's time developing it, proofreading it, laying it out, copy fitting the extra pages. That's if that time was free, which it's not. So one reason why I'm saying that in the lead up, you want to have some idea of how you might stretch it to various degrees of stretch goals is that if you just wind up coming up with stretch goals suddenly and you won't have as much time to balance the amount of money in the stretch goal and the amount that you're giving for the stretch goal, and you might wind up just losing money on the extra money that you made for the stretch goal, or basically overextending yourself. Feature creep is a problem in the initial, it's a problem in the stretch goal. And for us at Roll for Combat, Steven just likes to make amazing products. And I mean, I like to do it too, but Steven really wants everything to be the best ever that it could be. And so he'll just add pages or extra content more than what we said we would do when he feels like that will make it better. And that's just kind of at his expense to make it great. And that's it gives you a good product, but it also means that it's hard to get it through. It uses a lot of hours. It uses a lot of resources. I'm sometimes the person who's like, wait, hold on, that is scope creep. Right. Even though I'm usually excited to add what he added, I'm usually like, Steven, this is a great idea. I like it. I want to write it. I champion the bit. But also, like, we have a limited amount of time, so we have to try to figure that out. And we usually just do it. And because part of our brand is extremely premium products. And Steven showed Jewel of the Indigo Isles. That's an adventure path that I'm pretty confident in saying is the most deluxe 3-part adventure path that has ever been written. Not because there aren't amazing 3-part adventure paths that have been written by fantastic authors of many different styles and themes of adventure paths, but just because we had it by 3 veterans of Pathfinder 2 adventure writing and development, the development manager and senior developer at the time for Paizo of adventure paths, and the manager of all narrative at Paizo now wrote the 3 parts, and then we added so much content to it that it just has way more than anyone else has.
Yeah.
And so it's like nobody has attempted to make something that was to that scope, so it's easy to say that it hit that bar, if that makes sense, because well, what are you going to compare it to? Nobody else put out one that was that expensive.
So for preparing, right, and going into preparing, we talked about stretch goals. So one of the things that my team and I do is when we're thinking about stretch goals, we are, for many of the stretch goals, we are baking those costs into our project from the very beginning. In other words, we are assuming that we're going to hit those stretch goals, and we are accounting for that in our funding goal or in the prices of our products. For instance, if we say that we're going to have premium paper, like we're going to upgrade from 115 GSM to 128 GSM, and we're going to have super premium paper, or something like that, or it goes from 95 to 128, whatever it is, super premium paper. And that's our 50K stretch goal or 100K. When I'm doing my product pricing, I'm assuming I'm going to hit it, right? So that I can get proper quotes from my printer and I can price my books properly, right? Now, if I don't hit it, right, well, then I have some savings, or I can redistribute that extra money, that I had budgeted into something else that will make the product better or something. But I have some flexibility. But if I don't plan for hitting the stretch goal and then I get an extra cost at the end, I'm in a really bad spot, And so we did the same thing for artwork, like for Layers and Legends. We had a bunch of stretch goals that were adding more artwork. I assumed that we would hit those stretch goals and we'd be paying for that artwork. And so I budgeted for that artwork in advance so there were no surprises. The stretch goals were never a surprise. If we didn't hit a stretch goal, then, that was something we didn't have to do, and we could do something else maybe and use the funds for whatever,
Right. That's absolutely 100% why I said to line up your stretch goals in advance. When you were asking what to get in advance, because I know some people come up with them as they go along, or like, whoa, this made a lot more than we thought. But if you are willing to sit back and be like, okay, then maybe this is going to make like 5 times as much as we thought, but I'm still going to plan stretch goals all the way out to there.
Correct.
Now, one thing is that can make you sad when it doesn't make 5 times as much as you thought, but having that all planned out in advance can really help you to avoid too much scope creep and to be ready, just like you said, Luke. And I bet that's one of the reasons you were so successful, is that you had it planned out. You didn't wind up causing yourself to add something that you weren't budgeted for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest mistakes that I've made in the last Kickstarter for sure, but I'm pretty sure I did it in the very first Kickstarter, is you'll get into the Kickstarter, you'll launch, and it's doing well or not or whatever. But in our case, it was doing well, and we're all excited. We're like, woo! And then we have backers and people leaving comments saying, hey, what would be cool if we got blackline art maps, or if we got this, or if we got that, or I want this or something. What alt covers? We should have alt covers. That was something we did mid Kickstarter in our last Kickstarter, is we weren't going to have alt covers. And then after the Kickstarter launched, we had people that wanted alt covers. And so we're like, okay, let's do alt covers. And so we're scrambling to like figure out artwork for alt covers and getting it commissioned and stuff. So like one of the biggest mistakes I've made in my Kickstarters, and that I regret, is changing the plan after launch. Like now what we strive to do is have our plan super solid, right? And then launch, don't change the plan. Right? If you weren't going to make t-shirts, don't make t-shirts because 2 people asked about them. Because the 2 people that leave a comment saying they want it doesn't mean you're going to have 500 people that want t-shirts. It means you have 2 people that want t-shirts. And the 2 people that said they want t-shirts, maybe one of them actually gets them. So it's kind of like tempering that enthusiasm, because if your Kickstarter is doing well or better than you thought or something, you're going to feel super excited. But if you get crazy and start promising stuff that you weren't planning on and you didn't calculate for, you could run into problems monetarily, but it can also just run into fulfillment problems. You know, like you promised something and then you didn't plan it out. Let's pretend that you promised certain like maps or artwork, and as a stretch goal, you edit on the spur of the moment. But then once the dust settles and you get into fulfillment, you realize I don't have a cartographer that can do the maps. And then you spend 3 months finding a cartographer or an artist or something, and then your entire fulfillment gets pushed back because you threw something in at the last minute. You know what I mean? So I think for us, having a good solid plan, executing the plan, and not changing things in midstream that's been one of the things I've learned. You know, to do that or not do that. You know, that's just part of the preparation. You know.
Yeah, that's my first Kickstarter. That's exactly what happened. I changed things mid plan, and that was a mistake.
We do the same, but we did the same thing. But as I was saying, I think that's just because you're excited. It's your first Kickstarter, and it's doing so well, and you're just like, woo, right?
Well, that was the thing. It was doing so well.
Yeah, exactly.
If I put it this way, if your Kickstarter's not doing well, you're not doing any of these things. So it's
Correct.
like, here's the thing, and it's funny because here's the stupidest part is I read everything I could find on this, and they said don't do any of these things, and I did all of them. And now I'm telling you, don't do any of these. I did everything they said not to do, because I was like, I'll know better than them. Don't do it.
One of the pieces of advice that we were given is basically if you have a main product like an RPG book, like any of the accessories that you put that go along with it should directly be related to that. So if you're putting out a book on being a game master, well, a game master screen, well, that kind of has to do with it, right? But if you're putting out a book on being a game master and then you make a t-shirt, it's like, well, what does that have to do with being a game master? You know what I mean? Or if it's RPG book and there's dice, well, that kind of makes sense. You know what I mean? But they should kind of feel like they're related to the main product for any chance of these auxiliary things doing well. You know what I mean?
So would you say that a book on being a game master that also came with a book full of player options would be a little bit jarring? Not as much as the t-shirt, maybe?
I don't know. That is a very particular one, because for instance, a lot of the main publishers have shown that they can put out books that are mostly full of game master information, but also slip in player stuff like races or classes and stuff, and those books have a market for them, you know, because the game master has their content, and then they can share the player options with their players, or you might even have players that buy the stinking books just because they want to get those new classes or the race options, even though it's like, you know, a quarter of the book or something. So the way I've always viewed that is a way that these big publishers use to like expand their potential customers. It's like, you're not just putting out a book that appeals to game masters, you're now putting out a book that appeals to both game masters and players potentially. I don't know if it works though, because I don't have any insight into their numbers.
In terms of making books that have a mix, those are definitely successful. Okay. And I know that they have been for Paizo and for us. Okay. I was talking about, in particular, if you had one that, let's just say this is GM advice. Oh, okay. It was called How to Be a Better Game Master. Mm-hmm. If you added on a second one that was just like
a second book.
101 new subclasses, would that be too different? If
for me,
not whether within one book you can have a mix of both things, but whether like having a second product that was very jarringly different in who it was aimed towards in that way would be weirder or more difficult than just doing them as two Kickstarters.
For me, it would seem like, I don't know that it would work for one Kickstarter, because if I have to think about it, I'm like thinking about, okay, who's my customer base, right? Who am I marketing to, right? And so on the one hand, I'm marketing to game masters saying this is a book full of game master advice. And then I also have to market to players saying, by the way, you can get a whole bunch of new classes and stuff in here. You know, it just seems like I'm, for one Kickstarter, for one product. I don't know. I don't know that I would.
Or what if it was two products? Because you were saying once you're starting to add on the products.
Well, yeah, if it were two products on the same Kickstarter,
Would that be too jarring? Because you were pointing out that like a
Yeah.
T-shirt doesn't add to it, whereas a GM screen adds to it. But what if they were two books and one book was 101 subclass and one book was GM advice? Are those similar enough because they're both RPG books? Or would you say they're too different because they have a completely different target audience?
They might be similar enough. I personally wouldn't do it, probably. I would do it as 2 Kickstarters because I feel like I would like if I'm gonna put a Kickstarter out there and my primary customer is game masters, I want everything that they could possibly add on to be for game masters. Like I want, because like it's customer acquisition, right? What's the cost of customer acquisition? Very high. Okay. So if I can get one customer that comes and anything in my Kickstarter is something that he might use, right? She might use it. And that one customer could get everything in my Kickstarter. Okay. But if I pay for one customer acquisition 1, and there's 5 things on my Kickstarter, but they're a game master and they don't care about the player options, they're not going to get those. They're just going to get those 2 options, right? And so they're only biting on 2. Now, if I get 2 customers and the other one's a player, they don't care about the game master options. They're not going to back those parts of the Kickstarter. They're only going to get the player options, right? And so I'm paying to get 2 customers, but those 2 customers are only buying half of my Kickstarter. What I want to do, I think, strategically from a marketing standpoint, since cost of customer acquisition is high, is get every customer I get, everything in my Kickstarter appeals to that same customer. There's a chance they're going to want it. Now, very few people are probably going to get a Game Master screen, but to be fair, the cost of producing it is crazy low. I got to get some artwork and then I got to pay to have it printed. But I'm not writing chapter after chapter and doing all this other stuff. It's a, relatively speaking, it's a low cost of production. It's not that hard to add it on to the Kickstarter, But I think for me personally, I would have everything in that Kickstarter appeal to every single customer that comes along. Otherwise, you're paying for customers, but only half of your Kickstarter might appeal to them. So for me, that feels like that would be, and I don't know if I would say it's a mistake, but I would say that it's not the most effective or efficient way potentially to do it. That's just my gut feeling on it,
I think it's an efficiency thing, and I think we've come to agree with you on this. That was our early Kickstarters were kind of like that, right? Because we have like here's a 3-part adventure that the GM can run. Here's a book about playing dragons as your PC, and they both very, very amazing products, successful products. And then here's a bestiary full of monsters that has monster part creation system that you can use in your game and let people craft new items entirely out of monsters. Like those 3 books all had different people who might want them that may not care about either of the other 2.
Right.
And there were ties because like the 3-part adventure path used the monster part system and the creatures from the bestiary and had the dragons in it as one of the iconic characters who was in the adventure. So they were linked together. It wasn't like they were unconnected. But even so, you don't have the profile of one person who necessarily is super excited about one and might be super excited about the other. In the second Kickstarter, I think we had that to an even greater extent because we had like Eldamon, this monster, befriending and training monsters. And we had the Year of Monsters, which was the different ancestries. And then we had the bestiary book. And the stretch goals were for one of the 3 products. It's like, this product gets this thing. And the people who were basically like, I'm all in for product A, but I don't care about product B. We're always like, oh, man, the next stretch goal is for product B, and I don't even care. So, call me back when we're going towards a stretch goal that's for the one that I want. Whereas if you have one solid focus, even if it's, like you said, a GM screen and a book, that means that everyone is always excited about what the next thing is going to be. And they're not like, well, I'm taking this one off because it's not my thing.
Yeah, totally. So let's talk about the idea of finishing in advance. So traditionally, when Kickstarter originated, the whole idea behind Kickstarter was this is for you to get upfront capital funding for your project before you create the project. And yet now what we've seen is that many many creators or companies especially will create the product completely in advance before they even launch the Kickstarter. You know, they launch the Kickstarter like you guys are doing and like we're doing for our Kickstarter. And then there might be a few things that you have to add on, like the islands that you were talking about, but it's mostly print ready. So you can start.
Yeah,
printing.
and you're funding the print run. You're funding
Right.
some of those later
Right.
later expenses, but you have most of the in-house work done.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of companies do that.
Right. And I think so for a person doing their Kickstarter for the very first time, that's probably not a realistic expectation though.
I think that's a bad idea.
Right.
Even if you theoretically could do it, you're taking a massive risk.
Right.
Let's assume you're a tabletop RPG Kickstarter, which maybe some of our viewers are kickstarting in something else. But if you're doing a tabletop RPG product, I guarantee you that it's incredibly dangerous to do everything in advance for your first one because of the art.
Yes.
Even if you don't value your own time and you're willing to write it all yourself and lay it out all yourself and you just don't care, that art, if you want to have the kind of art that people are going to be willing to buy your product for, is pricey. Yes. And you can lose not just a little, but a lot of money if the Kickstarter doesn't go your way, if you have done it in advance with a lot of art.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the exact numbers, but for Layers and Legends, we spent 30,000 plus on art. Like, I don't know what it was, but it was a big bill.
I'm very unsurprised by that.
Yeah. So it costs a lot of money. So if you're trying to, for your first Kickstarter, get everything done in advance and fund it all in advance, you could be easily 20,000 in the hole paying for all of that. Let's pretend, right? And then if you launch it and it doesn't fund, or you make like 15,000, like you're at a loss. You're at a huge loss, right? So I think that probably a good route to go is if it's your first time, that you're not trying to get it all done in advance, right? You're trying to get your Kickstarter page needs to look tight, right? You got to have your Kickstarter page looking very nice, because Kickstarter is so competitive and there's so many people that are doing it that have I'll even see Kickstarters that don't even do well, in my opinion, that have super nice pages, you know, and it's like, wow, they have a really professionally laid out page, but they just didn't do that well. Of course, there's the flip side. I've seen pages that are kind of crummy, you know, like my first Kickstarter page was crummy, but it did okay anyway, you know, so the opposite can be true, you know. I think we're probably special exceptions because we have like audiences and stuff, you know, and not everybody has that advantage. But for the first time person, I think that they're probably going to not have it all done in advance, you know, and then they're going to work on the Kickstarter page and work on some basic marketing and getting the word out type of thing. And
make enough for a sample, probably, that won't put you completely in the red if it doesn't fund, but like show people what you're up to, what it's going to be like if you can. But it doesn't have to be a long sample with a ton of art that you paid for. You can probably get enough art for a sample for like $1,000 if it's a short sample. And then that it's not going to be good if you spent $1,000 and a lot of your own time setting it up and you don't get anything back, but it's hardly going to be $20,000-$30,000 that you never see again. That can be like a life-changingly bad amount of loss. Yeah,
absolutely. What we've done now that at least for us, now that we've had like the one successful one and the second successful one, and especially, well, the first one I did this, but the second one as well, is with the revenue generated from the first Kickstarter, take some of that, you set it aside to help you on the costs for the next Kickstarter, right? And then Layers and Legends did really well, so we took a bigger chunk, set it aside, and now we've actually spent most of that chunk already on this Kickstarter right here. But the point is that we raised that capital with the previous Kickstarter to be able to fund the next one, you know. And then if this one does well, obviously we'll do the same thing, take a big chunk, set it aside, and then you can start working on the next one, you know. So
absolutely,
yeah. So that's kind of the model that we've gone to, but it takes work to get there, you know. And it takes, in our case, it took a couple of successful Kickstarters to be able to start doing that, you know. But if you can get there, the advantage is there's a whole lot less stress, I've found, because you have like, it's almost all done by the time you launch your Kickstarter, right? The books are written, the artwork is done, the interior layout is done, and then you just do your Kickstarter, and then you print the books, and then you fulfill, and you can, you know what I mean? Like a lot of that pressure, it feels like to me, a lot of that pressure is gone. I don't worry quite as much because I know it's already done. I don't have to worry about it, you know? But it took a lot of work to get there, right?
Yeah, it takes a ton of work, and you probably won't be able to get there until, like, at best, your third Kickstarter, maybe your second if your first one's very successful and you have a good war chest after that. Right. For us at Roll for Combat, it was our third, and that's the current one. Right. That we were able to get mostly done in advance, enough that we're confident that by the end of September, with the Kickstarter ending in August, we'll have the PDF out to people. And so now that we've reached this point, we can probably do that, like, in the future as well sometimes. Now, obviously, sometimes you kickstart something that is guaranteed not to be done and out because of just its very nature. For example, we talked earlier about the Year of Legends for 2024 being, these new monsters once a month. And, if there's one monster a month, the last one's not going to come out until December of 2024. So, of course, it's not all going to be done and out immediately once it's funded. But you at least get to the point that you can do that. And it's I think, a healthier place to be for you and for the people who are backing, because they can see the product and they don't have to wait and be like, kind of forget about it and hope, and then, like, eventually it comes out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about Kickstarter page? So just talking about how we set up our Kickstarter pages so that it'll position the product well before people, it'll appeal to them, convince people to back the project, that sort of thing. Like, what kind of things do you guys do when you're setting up your Kickstarter page itself?
I'd say focus on art if you haven't. If this is your first Kickstarter, you probably don't. So you don't need to focus on showing off the aesthetics of your product as much, but it could still be worth, like I said before, getting a little bit of art for a sample, even if you are on a shoestring budget here, just because a little can go a long way. Then you want to make sure that you have a good summary of what you're about, a list of everything they're going to find in your product, and then a very easy to understand set of pledge tiers and possibly a roadmap to the stretch goals. Mm-hmm. And obviously there are things you need to put in there, like risks and challenges. So make sure you have all the like required sections, and explain things to people in advance that they're going to care about, so that there are no surprises for your backers, like shipping. Make sure they know what to expect with shipping, so they're not like, whoa, I was totally blindsided by what happened later with shipping.
Right. Yeah, I think some of the essentials for the Kickstarter page, if you're making a book, you want to have the cover of the book ready. People want to see what the book's going to look like, so you're going to have to spend money on the artwork for the book cover. I don't think there's any other way around it,
Yeah, so, and that's easily going to cost you for 4 figures for a further book cover.
I didn't spend 4 figures for my book cover.
Okay. Was it close?
No, not even close.
Oh, wow, that's pretty good for a cover piece of art.
Yeah, we paid 3 figures for the cover art itself, and then maybe a couple $100 to have the actual mock-up done. So I think we were probably around 1,000, let's say, to get the
going a little under maybe. Yeah. Maybe if you, depending on where you get it, but it's hard because cover art is expensive. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you got to find the right people, and the interesting thing is that the artists, their costs are just like, we have some artists that are like amazing and they don't charge a whole lot, and you have other artists that are amazing and they charge a whole lot, and
it depends on where they live too.
It does.
In some countries, the dollar goes a long way.
Yeah.
And it's really important to make sure that artists are paid a sustainable amount, but the art is also for you as you, the viewer who is doing a new Kickstarter, is going to be a scary and dangerous amount of your budget.
Yeah.
Make sure that you've set up in advance whatever like sort of LLC you're going to be using for your Kickstarter. It is true that all of these costs on art and other things like that are expenses for your LLC.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
that's money that you could put into your yearly taxes that was spent, and that helps a little. But not necessarily a lot if your Kickstarter winds up not launching.
And setting up an LLC is super simple. It's usually about $100 or so, and your accountant can do it for you, or you can do it yourself. And an LLC just basically, it shelters you. It establishes a business that is sheltered from liability and lawsuits and stuff too. So it protects you in that way, but it allows you to, have expenses toward, your business and stuff. So I set up the LLC, and then I immediately set up a business checking account. And then all finances go through the business checking account. 100% separation between personal finances and business finances. That way my accountant can do the paperwork properly. And then let's say, that you spend a couple $1,000s on your Kickstarter getting the page set up, and then you don't make any money, or you break even or something. Well, because it was set up under an LLC and your accountant has those expenses, you don't pay taxes on that. At least you're not paying taxes on the couple $100,000, which, depending on what the person's making with their job and stuff, that could be a sizable amount of their income. So not having to pay taxes on that could be huge. That can make a big difference in like your tax bill or your refund or whatever you got going on.
One thing to pay very close attention to for yourself is if you're someone who is just like, I'm just going to try this. I don't value my own time. I've put thousands of hours into this and we're barely going above breaking even. You're not going to need what I'm about to say. But if you actually do have a very successful Kickstarter, and your Kickstarter and the LLC that's around it are kind of what you're doing, you might reach a point where your Kickstarter makes enough that basically maybe you make more than like an author on average in the industry makes. And since the industry underpays by so much, this is very plausible if you make a successful Kickstarter. In that case, you're going to want to take an S Corp election on your LLC, which basically means you'll be taxed as a type of corporation that is, at the end of the year, the money is flushed to the owners, which is you. The reason for this is because only some percentage of that becomes your salary. However much is a reasonable amount for someone who did the job that you did at your company, which for a game designer is not necessarily a huge amount. If you have one of these $1 million Kickstarters, heck, you don't even need to get that high to have this be worth it. Now, if you're like, why do I care? What's the point? The reason that you want to do this is that since you're self-employed, you're actually paying double on Social Security and Medicare for any amount that is salary. So any amount that isn't salary is going to help you defray that. And you will not have to pay Social Security and Medicare on that part. So you're going to want an S Corp election if you have a successful Kickstarter.
I would talk to an accountant on that for sure, because if you set up an S Corp, you gotta pay yourself salary, first of all. So you're going to have to pay somebody to do payroll for you. That's an ongoing monthly expense, right? And then there are some complexities around that. Now, I was advised not to set up an S Corp because currently, until it expires, there is a 20% automatic deduction that I can use toward my salary or my revenue, right? Which is actually, according to my accountant, when you punch the numbers, even the size that our company is at, it's actually more beneficial for me to not do an S Corp right now. And the other thing too is that I know you're saying a developer doesn't get paid a whole lot in the industry, but once you have your own business, you're not just a developer, you are the business owner. And if your business has a certain amount of gross, right, or net, then the expectation of salary isn't just a person who works at a company, it's a person who owns the company and runs the company. And I think the salary expectation is higher on that. So I think we're at this point, we're getting into like some
we're very deep into the weeds, and I could say that
Well-
S corps also have that 20% deduction. I know which one you're talking about, the QBI.
Okay.
But that's far beyond what someone who's just starting off their Kickstarter
Yeah.
needs to know on their own. You should check with your accountants, and
accountant.
and they'll help you figure it out. In my case, I did the research myself, but it's easier if you have an accountant.
Yeah. Those things I don't trust myself with. The accountant. It's like I do my best to stay in my lane. There are certain things that I'm good at and that I do well, and then there are other things that I pay other people to do. And
yes, as Goliath Clark says in chat, none of this is legal advice. Speak with your lawyer, or accountant,
Yes.
or other fiduciary professional.
Yeah. So Kickstarter page, we are back on that topic. So you want a cover of your book, right? You want to have some interior spreads. You want people to see what the interiors are going to look like. Now, Mark, you were mentioning samples, right? So if you could put together like 20 pages of the samples, that is a little bit of artwork and then the interior layout as a downloadable PDF so that people can click on it. They go to your Kickstarter page, they click on the sample, they get it, and they're like, oh, this looks okay, maybe I'll back this, But if your Kickstarter is a black box where people don't know what they're going to get, they don't know what the book is going to look like, they don't know what the interior is going to look like, it doesn't, even if you on your page tell them what you are going to put in the book, there's a level of comfort in their being able to see the cover of the book and to see a bit of the interior of the book. That makes them feel more confident that you're actually going to deliver on what you say you're going to give them. You want people to feel like it's a real thing. Obviously, if you haven't created it yet, it's not real. But if they can see it covered, they can see the interior, and they can see like some artwork on your page, and they can see what you're saying you're going to put into it, it feels more real to them. And there's higher likelihood that they're going to back the thing, as opposed to, like, I've seen some Kickstarters that are just like a couple paragraphs of text, and they don't come anywhere close. Well, of course they don't, because we don't know what you're doing here, So, and the other thing too I wanted to mention is that one thing that is invaluable to my team and I when we're getting ready to do a Kickstarter is studying other Kickstarters. Look at other Kickstarters in the space, in your genre. Like if you're doing, tabletop role-playing games, look at other Kickstarters that have been funded, that have been successful. See what they do. Like many of them have what we call a wow image at the very top that shows the book and all the products and stuff and gives like highlights and stuff, and to see what other people are doing and how they're structuring things. Like for instance, other Kickstarters, when you back the hardcover book, do you get the PDF included for free with the book, or do you have to pay extra for the PDF? Studying things like that, seeing what other people do so that you can structure things in a way that's expected. Do other people, you mentioned shipping, do other people usually include the cost of shipping with the book, or do they charge it afterwards through Kickstarter? I think Kickstarter can charge shipping, or through BackerKit.
Most people charge separately because you can get wrecked.
Yes.
If you try, you can get wrecked in two ways if you try to include shipping with the Kickstarter, like quote, for free.
Mm-hmm.
Way number one is that you don't realize that shipping to certain places like Canada, where they do a double process, or certain other things, is way more expensive than you think. And you wind up losing massive amounts of money on everybody who was outside of your expectations. Or way number two is that you wind up having to price the tiers so high out of fear of shipping to certain places that they seem like they're high. Because it's easier to get someone to be interested in your tier when they see what the actual thing costs and then pay the shipping separately for their area, than to be like, here's a Canada tier and a Europe tier that is priced based on the highest thing that I could find for that region or whatever, so that it doesn't lose money. And they'll be like, wow, that's a lot, when they see the sticker shock of what the tier costs, as opposed to seeing the book price and then later seeing what the shipping is broken out for them. Like, that is generally easier for people to kind of, you know what I mean, to like kind of latch on to it and see where their money is going.
Yeah, it's very important to have your estimated shipping prices on your Kickstarter page. Most people throw it somewhere toward the bottom, but it's got to be on there. People, and you can get free quotes from fulfillment companies if that's what you're going to do. Now, if you're doing a small Kickstarter, maybe you're shipping everything yourself. So you'll do media mail yourself. And you know what? If you're doing your very first Kickstarter all by yourself and you don't think you're going to have the budget to have like a fulfillment company or something, or you're just not sure about navigating the complexities of shipping internationally, maybe you only you only offer it to the US or something, or US and Canada, because shipping, especially shipping, the most complicated place to ship for me that I've found is the UK and the EU, European Union. Anywhere in Europe, it's like you just have lots of different laws, regulations, VAT tax, that you have to navigate and stuff. So there are some complexities with international shipping too. So look into that, and if you're not comfortable with it, if it's your first time, maybe you only fulfill to the US. There's nothing wrong with that. And frankly, probably 85%, if not 90% of all of our backers are always from the US anyway. Like the vast majority of our customer base is from the US. And so if you're not comfortable handling complexities of international shipping, then don't do it. Just ship to the US, and call it a day. As your first Kickstarter, it's not a bad idea. It's going to probably save you a lot of headache, if so. But I'm always shocked by the cost of shipping, because we get this shipping quoted and stuff, and it's always crazy high, So one of the golden rules that they told us was you don't want the cost of shipping to be more than 50% of the product. Once the cost of shipping is more than 50% of the cost of the product, people start to not like that. So like, for instance, if your book costs $30 and the cost of shipping is $30, people probably won't like that. But the problem is that that's the cost of shipping a book. Like almost to Canada, it costs that much, especially to European. Now, the UK is not that bad. European Union's pretty darn expensive. Surprisingly, Australia is really expensive to ship to. Crazy expensive.
I mean, I guess that's not that surprising. It's pretty far away.
I mean, I guess that's true, I suppose. But they have a lot of, I think there are like different
New
fees.
Zealand, I think, is especially more expensive than Australia.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the shipping stuff that's a rough one to handle.
And if you're shipping somewhere that isn't those places that we just said, it can get very, very expensive very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are certain places we just don't ship to. For instance, our fulfillment partner has told us that, there are certain places that if you send a package there, it'll probably not arrive. Period. End of story. So it's a complete risk. So they told us, the Middle East, South Africa, there are certain Central American countries they told us we shouldn't ship to, Russia, and so there were certain places where they're just like, that's a black hole. You send a package there, it's probably not going to arrive, and then the backer's going to want you to send a new one. And guess what? It's probably not going to arrive either. So you're better off just not shipping, just digital only to certain places, So,
I mean, the thing with shipping is shipping. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of these countries are, I mean, not to get political, but they're trying to make it so that you can only ship within their countries, because they don't want exactly what's happening. Is they don't want they don't want it to become worldwide shipping, that you buy something in the United States and then it ships to, I'm just making up, like France. They want it to stay within France, so it supports people within their own country. And so a lot of these countries are starting to set up laws and taxes and VATs, so it's getting more and more and more expensive for foreign country, for people like ourselves to ship. So instead, what you end up having to do is where you make it cheaper is that you would set up a distributor in that country, but then you got to get your books there. So it's sort of a mess, but that's what these countries are doing, because they're very, very worried about Amazon. It's mostly Amazon. It's like they did it because Amazon was like shipping all over the world. They're like, okay, well, if you're going to do all the shipping, you actually have to have all your distribution center. Everything has to be here local, and you have to do everything locally. And that's what's happening. But meanwhile, the customers are getting screwed, because I get this all the time. People are like, oh my God, shipping so much. I'm like, dude, that's what it is. Like, I keep telling you, I have no control over it. I can't do anything about shipping prices. And it is what it is. And for better or for worse, a lot of people know, especially if you live in Canada. Canada is crazy expensive to ship to.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. It's so close to us, and yet we have to pay a lot of money to go to Canada. Yeah.
Canada's very expensive. They're one of the most expensive ones.
I don't know why. It's got to be taxes or something.
No, because
Tariffs
it's a
or-
double ship. No, you have to ship within Canada. So they have one of the laws where you can't ship from the United States to Canada. You have to ship within Canada. So it gets shipped to Canada and then it gets shipped again.
Oh, okay. Can't just go direct. It's got to go to a
No, it
warehouse
has
or
to go
something.
to a waylayer. So it's much more
Yeah.
expensive.
Jeez,
And
man.
they all do that. I mean, they're all doing it. And it's just, I mean, yet another reason why these digital products, it's like, I know people really like their books and everything, but it's like, it's getting every
Yeah.
day it gets more and more and more. And it's real problem with something like a book, because it's like, all right, well, I bought a $40 book or $50 book
Yep.
and the shipping was $30. And I'm
Right.
like,
Exactly.
that's what it is. I mean,
Yeah. We're our Kickstarter right now. There are 3 books, but like if you just get one book, it's $30 to pay for the book. Now, if you're in Australia or the EU somewhere, it's going to cost you $30 to get your $30 book shipped to you, right? It's the cost
I
of
know
the book.
people complain, but I'm like, it's what it is.
I mean, I can't if I don't charge you
pre-COVID,
that,
it was less.
if
It
I don't,
definitely was less.
oh yeah, it was less. But if I don't charge you
less.
that, I'm out of business and nobody gets their books because I just go into the red.
Well,
on
that's
shipping,
what I mean.
you know?
People have gotten better about it, but I've kind of just said, look, that's what it costs.
It's what it costs. It's what it
I
costs.
mean, it's like,
Yeah.
there's nothing I can really do about it. I wish
Yeah.
there was, but
Now, if you get
unfortunately.
if you get it, and the problem with shipping too, the weird it's not weird, but the thing is there's an upfront cost to any shipment. So like a 3-pound book is $20, but if I ship you 3 books that weigh 9 pounds, it's
Well,
20.
once it goes over 5 pounds, it gets incredibly expensive.
Well,
That's
no,
it.
not. Well, it depends on where it's going, but
Yeah.
I can ship you a 3-pound. I can ship you 3 books for $25, but 1 book is $20. It depends on where it's going, you know. But there's like there's a weighted. There's the formula is like pounds times X plus 10, you know, and so there's that initial shipment has a cost to it, you know. But when you add things on, depending on where you're going, you know, there's some economy of like size that gets factored in, you know. So we were doing some like subsidizing shenanigans basically on ours to help. We were trying to lower the cost of a single book, you know, a little bit because the costs were so high. But yeah, it's just going to be expensive, you know. And the interesting thing is that I feel like for at least some of those countries, they know it's expensive too, you know. They have to, I imagine, because they're probably getting stuff shipped to them and it's expensive all the time. So I don't know, but yeah, shipping is what it is and we can't change it.
Yep.
Absolutely.
What about setting prices in general? Like, are there any guidelines you guys go by when you're trying to set prices of things?
Well, pricing is tricky. I'm like, pricing. I don't love that topic only because it's so freaking hard. I mean, basically, what we do is whatever the market is. Look, it's all over the place. Like the books, the actual physical books, I've been pricing them at the price of what books are. Like right now, you know, a 200. Right now, a book is $60 for a RPG book.
Yeah.
The prices have been going up very, 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 very fast. Like a 120-page Lost Omens book from Paizo was $35, then it's 40, now it's 45, and that's within like a course of a year. So the prices have been going up very quickly. $60 is really a bargain. I know it sounds like a lot, but $60 for 200-page book, full color, super quality, you know, like with tens of thousands of dollars worth of artwork. You're getting a deal. I know you might not think these things are very expensive to make and then to print them and everything. So it's really got to be about $60, and that's really the bare minimum. Where it gets interesting.
That's a like a Kickstarter discount price for a 270 or whatever page book.
And then it gets interesting where it gets weird, and I've seen people do it all over the places. The PDFs and the Foundry modules. I've seen a lot of people like Cobalt's been charging $50 for their books and $50 for their Foundry module and the Roll20, all their modules. They're just charging the same price. I've been doing it the same price. The PDF and the Foundry modules, I've been doing it $29.99. Sort of, it depends on some of them have been changing for various reasons I won't get into, but for the Kickstarter itself. But I also do economy of scale because, like, okay, I have it going up every $10. So like if you get, a PDF and the book, it's whatever. And then for just the Foundry module, it's another $10. And then if you want the special edition, it's another $10. And then you get this with the Foundry module and the PDF and the special edition is another $10. So I'm trying to make it reasonable that it's, you can get a little bit more for just a little bit more, or a lot more for a little bit more. Does that make sense? Like I've seen people where they'll make it, and this is ridiculous. I think this is absolutely ridiculous. And Cobalt does this, a few others, where it's like, well, the book is $50, but if you want the book and the PDF, it's $55. I'm just like, you can have the PDF, okay? I'm like, if you're gonna buy the book, you can have the PDF. I'm not making you pay for more for the PDF. But I got a lot of people who are like, why does the PDF come with the Foundry module? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, because it costs money every time we sell a Foundry module. We have to give them a percentage to Foundry or Roll20. Roll20, you have to give a huge amount to. And I'm like, because it costs us a lot of money. We have to pay a percentage of those sales to them. So that's why we don't give it out for free, because it's not free to us.
But the fact that they're asking that question is justification to charge more for it. And here's why. Because the fact that they're asking the question means that there's value in also getting the PDF. And if there's value in having both, why wouldn't you pay more for both? You see what I'm saying? Like if they only wanted the Foundry thing and they had no interest in the PDF because there's no added value to it, then they wouldn't even be asking for it. But the fact that they're asking for it tells you that they want it and there's value. Therefore, there should be a charge to it. There should be a cost for it. I think does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree. And so if you look at the model, if you look at ours, just go to indigo.rollforcombat.com. That pricing model, I'm going to try to use that in pricing model for most of my book and Foundry module Kickstarters going forward. Either that or incredibly close to that.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like I'm trying to just come up with one price so that everyone knows what it's going to be. Because something we're doing is that I'm planning on, we have this Kickstarter, and then I have one in October for Year of Legends, and then I have at least 2 planned for next year early, like right February, January, like right, not January, but like February, March, right around there. I got another one planned, which we'll talk about soon. And then we got the new bestiary, Battles of Bestiary, Elemental Storm. That'll be one.
Yeah.
So we got a lot, it's like, and I'm actually going to be doing now, Ian World does this and Legendary Games does this. I don't know if my heart could take it. Because it's like, it was the catch-22. It's like, which is better, one Kickstarter with 3 books or 3 small Kickstarters? Because this is
the 3 small Kickstarters is
what
we've we've come towards it here.
But we're getting better at it, and we're also getting faster and more efficient. And I'm also trying to come up with a model, because Cobalt does it too. Cobalt uses the same graphics and the same layout except color changes. Legendary, same thing. So I'm like, all right, if I can figure out a kind of a standard format, because I put together my Kickstarter page in like a day. I mean, it was like, actually, for whatever, my first one took forever, but I just cranked it out.
Dude,
quick.
We've been working on our Kickstarter page for a couple months, just like iterations of it, working with our graphic designer.
I did said it, I cranked it out, but then I iterated over time.
Oh yeah, I'm
but,
sure.
I got
it
just. But the first one took forever.
Yeah.
And this one, I literally just sat down. Oh my God, I got to do the Kickstarter page. Okay, I'm just going to do it. And I just started to write. And I literally wrote everything in it, like writing in line. I was like typing, and then boom, done. And I was like, oh, there we go. Well, it was surprisingly fast.
So what we did, this is probably, especially for people who have never done this before, this might be something you could try, is we literally went to another Kickstarter that we liked how they did their layout on their Kickstarter page. And we literally copied like mostly what they did onto our Kickstarter page, right? And that was our first draft. And then we started iterating. And now our Kickstarter page looks completely different than it started, but it gave us a starting point, because sometimes for things, you could say this for writing, for creative stuff, but sometimes you just need something on the paper as a draft that you can work with to get the ball rolling. Because if you're just staring at a blank page, maybe it never starts. So just get something done and then iterate and improve on it,
Yeah, that was the other thing, is that I just basically had to get it down because it's like if I don't get started, it's never going to get done. And
Yeah.
that's the hardest. Everyone says that, and it's true. It's like the
Mhm.
hardest part is starting.
Oh, it
I'm
is.
like,
It's that for every project. Today I had to write an adventure, and I was just like getting started. I kept on delaying it, but once I started it and got working on it, it wasn't that bad. It took me 4 hours and I was done. But there's always that like you got to start. You got to open up the Word document or the Kickstarter page. You just got to start, and then it gets better. So it's very true.
Well, in that case, I need to have you write me an adventure. We'll get some.
Well, no, let me be clear. This was not a publication ready adventure. This was I am ready to run this for my players adventure. There's a big
there's
difference.
so much of a difference
Big
between
difference.
those.
Yeah,
The publication ready adventure,
uh-huh.
like Lou said at the beginning, and we agreed is in like the top few lengthiest
Right.
processes.
I can write a short. I mean, it's still an adventure that would take me probably 2 or 3 game sessions, but I can write a standard length for me games, a standard adventuring day. Handful of encounter adventure, publication ready in about 8 hours, maybe 10 hours. I can do that. But I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm
Yeah.
But
I really, 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 really want you to read. I know you don't have time, but I do want you to check. I'd love to hear what you think of this.
the Indigo
Because that'll
Isles, yeah.
by Joel of the Indigo, because
Uh-huh.
that'll is one. It's okay. Get this. It's level 1 through 10. It's one adventure. It's interconnected. So things that
Yeah.
happen all the way at level 1 happen.
Yeah.
Like the chapter 1 happened in chapter 12.
Well, I'll tell you what, dude.
It's incredibly hard.
I'll say 2 things to you. One, I use the bathroom every single day, and I take reading material with me. Okay.
Oh my god, it'll take you a year to get through this.
Two. I usually grab an RPG book when I do that. So if one of
but
those,
this one weighs 4
if-
pounds. It'll
if-
crush your.
no, I take the
crush
path,
your
I
legs when
take
you're
my
reading.
books, dude. No, it doesn't matter. So if one of those ended up at my house, it would probably slowly get worked through.
Okay, I have the PDF to that. That makes it a little easier. But,
Well, that PDF's not going up to the bathroom with me.
oh, you gotta get an e-reader. There you go. But yeah, I know what to be. But yeah, I'd be curious, especially because I think, and the reviews have been phenomenal. I mean, I think it's an insanely fantastic adventure because we killed ourselves and we did. Well, you remember? Oh, I'm doing that as a talk, by the way, Luke. It was so popular. It's like, oh, these D&D, the tricks, the movie tricks for your adventures.
How can I find what's the name of that talk you're giving? I want to make sure I can go to that. What's the name? I need to find it.
Just look up Roll for Combat. You'll find
Roll for Combat, and I can find it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's literally. I mean, you can join me if you want. It's like I.
What are you talking about?
It's remember the 5 tricks I used for building adventures.
Oh yeah.
Using movie tricks.
Yeah, I remember.
I mean, since you literally write adventures all the time, I have no problem sharing the stage if you wanted to even do that with me. It's Saturday.
So you're gonna be up there by yourself?
Yeah, I do these all the time.
Yeah. Okay. No, I mean,
I have no fear of public speaking. Okay. I've done many talks by myself in front of thousands of people.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
No warning that I needed to do a talk.
Oh, really?
More than once.
Make it up. Just make it up.
In my tech days, this used to happen all the time.
Hey, you're gonna go give a talk. All right.
I literally had to give a talk at Bloomberg about technology, and I was deadly ill in front of all these suits, and I didn't even know what the topic was, and I was just making crap up for an hour by myself. And I was like sweating bullets.
Dude, no, you don't need to worry about it because I have been in meetings with executives in suits, and I'll tell you what, they speak in gobbledygook, and I bet none of them understand what anybody else is saying.
Oh, well. Well, also remember, I was a teacher for a long time, so that was the other thing. I'm good at explaining. That's why I was doing this for so long. I would explain. This is back in the early tech days of like the 90s when the web was blowing up, and I was explaining how web works and how internet works, and I was going to a lot of companies to do that. So that's what a lot of my talks were. Okay, like what is this internet? What is a website? It was like that. That was stuff like that. It was like, nice. What is HTML? It was a lot of these talks. So yeah, now I'm going by myself. I don't even have an outline. I'll just whip it up. But you know what? That talk I did for that video, I was sick as a dog, and Mark and I just made it up on the spot. And
dude, I took
rest is history.
That's one of the few RPG like videos that I've taken notes on, or I literally listened to it. I listened to it and I was like, this is gold. And then I got back from the gym and I only remembered 3 of the points, and so I had to re-listen to parts of it to get all the points. And I took notes, and then I integrated that into the template that I use now when I
Wow.
like design my
Holy crap.
adventures. Like it's front loaded. It's got like
You're not the
yeah.
first person though. Not to say like a lot of people said, "Oh my god, that talk was so good." I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay, I'm gonna do one at Gen Con."
It was super good. It was super good. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And this time I'll actually write down notes and not be sick. I hope.
I have the notes. I could.
Yeah, give me the notes. I'd be curious. I don't even remember. I'm gonna have to rewatch the talk. And there was actually 6. We had 6 on there.
Yeah,
I remember. It was like always be escalating.
I'll just send you my adventure template, and your
okay, even better.
The notes are at the very beginning. Then you can see my template too that I use.
Great, there we go. Well, if you're free Saturday at 10 a.m. And then my other talk on the OGL history, which I actually should write down too, because that's kind of important. And that's with Ryan Dancy, and that's at noon at the same room, by the way.
Is it Saturday at noon? Same room?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Those are my 2 talks, and then that's it. I was gonna do more, but I was like,
Okay.
I'll do 2. I did 2 last year. I actually wanted to do like 4 or 5, but I couldn't think of any topics really. I was like,
yeah.
It's hard to come up because when you fill out those forms for Gen Con, it's really long. And I was just like, oh, I gotta fill this whole thing out. It's like takes forever. And then I was like, all right, I'm done. I got to do 1. Like, so after an hour, I'm like, all right, I won't be doing 5 talks because I don't want to spend 5 hours filling these forms.
Well, I definitely I mean I don't have anything planned. I literally missed the boat on signing up for events, so I have nothing planned. So I'll probably be there for both of those. Besides, you promised that you would show me around Gen Con too, because I've never been there before.
Yeah. I'll show you. Yeah. As I said, we're gonna have a ton of people with us, and about 2/3 have been. I like to say 1/3 has been there a lot, like a million times. 1/3 has been there a couple of times, and 1/3 has never been there before.
Yeah,
so we'll have a nice mix, and I can.
You have like an entourage that you're showing around. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
it's the Roll for Combat entourage.
It is. Oh, we just did a video before this, and I guess I forgot you weren't part of that one because Baron from what is it,
Dungeon Masterpiece.
He's going to Gen Con. He's never been to Gen Con before, so I'm going to show him around.
Oh, yeah, I've never been to Gen Con either.
There you go. And so you and him could collaborate and take notes. And then you have people like Professor Dungeon Master, who's been a million times, and he will also be there. And No Nat, who's been there a couple of times. It's like his 3rd or 4th, I believe. So.
Yeah.
And then we have my friend Bob Marquis, who's never been. And then we have John Statch, who's been there like 10 times. So
okay. Well, what do you guys plan on doing? Like you said, you're gonna have an entourage. So what are you gonna be doing with your entourage while you're there? Like,
we're gonna actually. I already said this in the other one. I'm repeating myself. We're gonna go to like Ginny D and Dungeon Dudes talks and crash them and like start a rumble.
Oh, I gotta be there for that.
I'm kidding.
I gotta be there
for
that.
I'm not kidding. Kind of. I might actually still do that.
What are they giving talks on? What are they giving talks on?
They're doing like, I don't know, they're sold out, but I was like, oh, well, you should show up too. I mean, I don't know Dungeon Dudes, but I know Ginny D. She'll say hi at least. I think they're running some adventures with some of the. You can look it up under Dungeon Dudes or Ginny
okay.
D
Well, so you said they're giving talks, but they're just running adventures, or?
But it's considered a talk. Running an event. Oh, sorry. They're running adventures with each other. So it's sort of like it's an actual play with each other with an audience.
With an audience. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. I got you.
Yeah. I think they're doing that. I think they're doing an actual play. And she has a couple of talks. There's also some other talks. There's a couple talks on OGL where I'm doing one and Linda Codega is doing theirs at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Mine's at 1. Mine's at noon on Saturday. We purposely coordinated so we didn't overlap each other, and we actually kept ours apart from each other because we figured both of those would probably be popular. I mean, I don't know if they're going to mine, but I'll probably go to theirs because I'd be curious to see what they have to say on the topic. I mean, I signed up for some events, but I have free tickets. I actually have extra tickets. So if people want to come with me, I have a spare for most events.
How do you have extra tickets? Don't you have to pay for them?
I already got them. Yeah.
You already paid for them.
Yeah, it's like $2, $5, whatever.
Okay.
$4, whatever. I'll pay for your ticket. And some of these are like 30, some are like 30, 40, $50. Those I didn't get, but I have like I don't know. Look at my it's like now we're off top. Here we go. Let me see. I am running. Let's see my events.
Somebody in chat said that the 5 movie tricks is Saturday at 11 a.m.
What?
You
no,
said
it's not.
you told me
Did
10
they
a.m.
move it? Wait, did they move it? They might have moved it.
Can they just
Sometimes
move it? They could just move it?
No. It's here we go. It's 10 a.m.
Okay.
Eastern.
10 a.m. Eastern. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'll put in the link.
All right, that's
Hold on.
cool.
Here's the link. If you guys don't block me.
I guess that's
Bing.
11 a.m.
There it is.
Atlantic time,
Yeah.
but maybe this person's in.
It's Eastern.
Yeah, but maybe this person who's looking at it is in Nova Scotia and it's automatically converting to
It
their
could be.
time zone or something.
Yeah, and then here's the other one. This was the big this one's almost sold out. I mean, you don't need a ticket for it. Ooh,
Where are you
100
putting these
people
links?
is only it's like 80, was it 83 people who signed up for that one.
The OGL one?
Yeah.
Nice.
100 people, and I am doing that one. Originally that was by myself, but then I invited Ryan Dancy and he said
Oh yeah, you get Ryan Dancy. I watched your streams with him on there. That dude is awesome. Yeah.
So he and I are going to do it together, and I'm sure it'll be fun because
Oh, yeah.
he was fantastic. So
Oh yeah. Those
I mean,
are
between
awesome.
the two of us, I'm sure
Uh-huh.
these hour-long talks go by in like a second.
They
like
do.
I blink and they're over. So
Yep, they do. They're so
That's
fast.
why we have these 3-hour DM
No,
layer streams. They
Ah.
they take a little longer, but 1 hour is just a second.
It is.
1 hour
Yeah.
is so fast. Well, especially
yeah.
the way we talk, I can go on forever.
Mm,
It's
I
very
know.
hard for me to not talk about a subject for 2 or 3 hours.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Especially if it's a movie.
All right. So
Let's go into movies. Here we go. Let's start. No, we won't start a movie.
So for back on the topic of Kickstarters, we've talked about promoting, preparing for them, the Kickstarter page, setting a little bit about setting prices, marketing. What about fulfillment? So fulfillment. What things
By
can we
the
tell
way,
people about that?
I'll tell you in a second. I do have 2 tickets to everything I signed up for. So if you want to come with me,
Sure, I'll go. I don't have anything. I'm doing nothing. I'll go with you.
Legendary. I have Dungeon Crawl Classics. I'm Legends of Andor.
I'll do that.
I'm playing Tales of the Valiant Kickstarter. I'm going to try that out. I want to try
Okay.
that out. I'm doing Ritter Mound. That's the Dragonbane. That's also new. Both of those are new RPGs, and I wanted to try those out. So whatever. I just got some crap. Those are Thursday and Friday. What I
Thursday
usually
and
try to
Friday?
do
Okay.
is Thursday and Friday just get stuff done because by Saturday it gets crazy, and then you usually want to start doing things and hanging out with your friends. So,
What gets
Okay.
crazy? Like, what do you mean? What gets crazy?
the convention is insane
Oh,
because
okay.
it's like it's put it this way. I think there's 20,000 events
Mhm.
in 4 days.
Yeah.
How many events is that that's 5,000 events per day.
Mhm.
And
Over
it's probably more than that on some of the days because the last day always
Yeah.
has the fewest events, right?
Yeah, so physically it's beyond overwhelming. It's like, you think about that. It's like, how do you even comprehend? And if you spend 24 hours a day for 4 days walking around Gen Con, you still won't even see a fraction of it. So what happens is by Saturday, you start feeling the weight of the con on you, like, oh my God, I wanted to go see this and do this and do this and do this. And you go and have to do it. That's the day usually I start skipping going to things. Or those are also the best talks on Saturday. So the best talks, but Saturday, a talk isn't as much of a commitment because you can go in and leave after 30 minutes as opposed to sitting down for a 4-hour game. And
I've left
So-
in the middle of a 4-hour game before.
oh, really?
Absolutely. I think I've only done it once at a convention. But the
Okay.
game was so bad after I think it was about 2 hours, I noped out. I was actually I before I left, I got up for a bathroom break and
Because you do, right? You do the old, I'm just going to go to the bathroom. Let me bring my bag with me.
No.
I'll be right back.
I
And
didn't
then you
do
never
that. I
come
didn't
back.
do that. I went to the bathroom. I did have to go to the bathroom. I think I did. But I did go to the bathroom, and then I wandered the vendor hall for like 20 minutes or something before I went back to the game. And then I sat at the game for another 45 minutes or something. And then finally, I just packed up my stuff and I said, I'm sorry, guys, I have to go. But it was like,
Oh yeah, I see
I
that
could
all
not
the time.
justify sitting there for 2 hours in that game. I was like, I am noping out of this. I am leaving. I'm sorry. It didn't do it. And then
Yeah.
that left such a bad taste in my mouth. I had another game I had signed up for on the next day, and I didn't go to that game. It was a different game master, but I was just terrified of being in a crappy game a second time. So I was just like, I'm not even going to that game. I'm just
That's
gonna.
what I signed up for 1 and 2 hour games. And
Okay.
that way I figured a 2 hour, I
Yeah.
could probably make it through 2 hours. I'm not going to make it through 4, but
Mhm.
I signed up for smaller games. And as I said, I signed up on Thursday and Friday because Thursday and Friday, people, especially if they're new, like you feel like but Saturday's the crazy day. Saturday's the crazy day. And then Sunday is catch 22 because that's the best day to buy stuff because everything's on sale because no one wants to take anything back with them. I did that at Origins. And I'm like, I'll wait till Sunday to buy everything, and everything I wanted to buy was sold out.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I didn't get anything. It was all gone. So
Yeah.
learned my lesson. Whatever.
So anyway, the question I'd asked was fulfillment tips, things we can talk about fulfilling Kickstarters. Like once you've closed, once it's all over, actually doing the fulfillment.
Have someone else do it for you. There you go. No, I'm serious. Like my friend, that guy who did the 600,000, 700 John Stats, he's actually going to be at the convention with us, so you can talk to him. He did it himself, including Canada. He's insane. He's like, oh, I just got all my books and then delivered to like my in my garage. I'm like, I just got the invoice for the books that we have. How many tons was it, Mark? 12? I think it was 12 tons.
The invoice, you said it was a lot of tons. It was enough that it wasn't as many tons as
you guys were saying
guessed it would be
18.
based on you saying how many books there were and the number of pounds, but it was still a lot of tons.
Well, the moment
out,
you're measuring
way,
it in tons, that's a lot of books.
Well, this is the other thing, by the way, Mark. I think you were actually correct because I forgot a third of those books are getting shipped to Diamond. So if
and so they didn't count against you.
Yeah. So if you combine it, it's about 18 tons of books.
Okay, because I remember I guessed somewhere like just under 20 tons.
Yeah,
and when it was 12,
18.
I was like, whoa, that's not
no, because it's not as many books. So back to what I said. 18 tons of books. Tons. These are just books. Yeah. That's not even the tchotchkes. That's not even the add-ons. Are you really going to fulfill that yourself?
No. Well, I mean, it depends on like the magnitude of your Kickstarter, right? And how many backers and how much product you have. If
mine's a big one. So,
yeah, right. Yeah. If you have someone who does like a $10,000 Kickstarter, chances are
you could do 100. Yeah, you could do it yourself. Yeah, I totally understand. But for us, you need a professional warehouse to take care of it.
Yeah, and there are lots of fulfillment companies that can help with that.
There's a ton.
I will say this: do not work with Easy Ship. Okay, they are just don't do it. So take a big pass on that because they're one of the big ones out there, and they are a train wreck. They are a huge
what about
train wreck.
Quartermaster Herd is okay.
They're good. I used Quartermaster for my very first Kickstarter. They did a good job. I had no complaints whatsoever. The pricing was pretty decent. There was communication wasn't the best in the world. And the level of customer service wasn't to me wasn't like outstanding, but I didn't have any like super complaints. It was solid, it was solid. And now I'm using Crown, which do you guys use Crown too, or use someone else?
Yeah, we both. Yep.
Yeah. So now I'm using Crown, and they're super solid, and they're outstanding in all regards. So so I'm gonna stick with them for, until they kick me off or something. I don't know, but I'll be with them. So
yeah, some of the other ones. I mean, I signed with Diamond. They're huge, comic book, RPG distributor for big box stores. They're actually starting to do fulfillment too. So
yeah, okay, yeah. But my buddy did a Kickstarter, and his Kickstarter was like $250,000. It was a good sized Kickstarter, and he used Easy Ship. And I'll tell you, man, I got so many messages from him. He and I share messages through a thing called Marco. It's like a little app on your phone where you can talk to each other. And I get so many messages from him. He's like, easy ship, nah, 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 nah. This is it was just it was a train wreck, dude. Everything about it was a train wreck. They're one of those big, huge companies, that does fulfillment, and yeah. So avoid them, but there are good ones out there if you need them. Just not that
Yeah,
one.
there's. I mean, basically, you need to. It's tricky though. I mean, I would meet with them. I mean, I got lucky because I looked around and I had and I'll just say it, Eric Mona, who was publisher of Paizo, he's the one who recommended Crown to me. So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and that's how I got that. So
Yeah.
it was sort of a friend of a friend.
Yeah, Regent Publishing is the one that got me hooked up with Crown because I was getting my books
yeah,
done
and
through
so and they're not that big. They're medium size, so they're big enough but not too big.
Crown, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because once they get too big, it feels like a lot of things start to suffer.
Yeah, there is a downside to this, and I will say there is a downside. Like for example, they can only fulfill when they have time. So like if they're fulfilling another Kickstarter and then your Kickstarter's ready, they can't do both because they're just not quite big enough. They can only do 1 or 2 fulfillment at a time, which isn't a bad thing because they're not huge. So it's a catch-22. If you have a really big one, they could probably fulfill multiple, but then you lose the personal touch. So the downside, but you're not doing fulfillment that often. And hopefully you do it once as opposed to me because I have segments. So when you do 3 books and the people can buy them separately, you're doing fulfillment 3 or 4 times, which sucks. But I did that. Now I'm trying to do just 1 fulfillment per time. So you do fulfillment, you do it once, and then you're done. So you can just don't have to worry about it. So it should be okay to do a medium size fulfillment company.
Yeah. Now, when I was talking with Crown, it sounds like it only takes them a day or 2 to get 1 fulfillment done. So if they have everything ready, they get it boxed and cracked out, very quickly.
I think, well, mine's going to be closer to a week because I have
more things.
A lot more things.
Okay.
It's a big fulfillment.
Yeah, so that could be problematic, if you got both at the same time type of thing. Usually a week difference doesn't kill something unless you have 20 Kickstarters all at once and they all gotta wait for the other, then the one that's waiting for everybody else kind of is at the end there. So that could be a problem, right? But ours was fine. As soon as most of the stuff got there, they did it, and it worked really well. So somebody in chat asked if we have a preferred list of companies to work with or avoid. So for fulfillment, obviously I just got done beating the crap out of Easy Ship, so I would avoid them for sure. Crown, which Goliath Cleric just put their name into chat, it's solid. Now, something though, I don't know. I would suspect that some companies might have they might not accept all customers or companies to work with. I don't know how it works. If you're a super small and you have 100 backers, it might not be worth a company's time to work with you. I don't know how all companies do this. Maybe they don't do that. Maybe they'd be fine. But I know that some companies almost see if you're I don't know what they would call it, a preferred client, or because if they have to do a whole bunch of setup time and they're only going to fulfill 10 shipments with you, it might not be worth their time and they might not want to work with you, and you might be better off doing it yourself anyway because it's only 100 backers or something. So that's a grain of salt. I don't know if everybody works with everybody. For instance, our preferred printer right now is Regent Publishing, and I know you gave me the name of another one, Stephen, and we got quoted with them, and that one was only about maybe under $1 difference in the quoted prices. It was almost nothing. It was so close to it that we just ended up going with Regent because we have an established history with them, and they've just done such a stellar job. You know what I mean? So for me, for publishing, if you're looking for printing your books, I should say, Regent Publishing Services is who we use. And they did it for Layers and Legends, and it was absolutely outstanding. Crazy high quality, amazing customer service. Our Tiffany is our contact, and amazing customer service. So she's Regent, super solid. Crown for fulfillment. So you have any recommendations for you guys?
Well, we use the same people, so
Same people.
so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's I mean, there are others that I'm aware of, but I've never used them.
Yeah.
There's only really 2 or 3 in the whole industry from what I'm aware of.
As far as what
Yeah.
printers.
Yeah, really for RPG books, it's kind of a specialized market. So
Yeah. Yeah. And then for other things for other things you might need to do in your Kickstarter, besides just fulfillment and shipping, that's where things get a little bit more challenging sometimes. Because, like, for instance, if you're looking for someone who can do interior layout and design, like we have people that do it for us now, like, but it seems like it's hard to find people to do that. Like, for instance, just do the layout in design, for instance, the interior layout and design. We've had a hard time like finding people who can actually do that. Like, we're happy with who does it for us now, but it's been a challenge for us. Artists tend to be we don't have too hard of a time finding artists. But you know what? Now that I think about it, a lot of the artists that we use were referred to us by other people who had used them before. Because sometimes if you're just going out there trying to find artists, then you're just like, I don't know, going through ArtStation or browsing Instagram and then messaging people and trying to get rates and stuff, and that can be perhaps a little hit and miss. So, are there any other like people you guys tend to work with, or contractors or stuff like that, for different aspects of your project?
I have too many to list. I use dozens of freelance, like literally dozens. So
Yeah.
I mean, I have a whole army of artists. We have a small army of writers now, and I mean, it depends. For fulfillment, the easiest thing to always do whenever you need to do fulfillment is talk to someone else who's done it and then see how they did it. Because
Yeah.
like I needed to do the plushies, and then so Gallon Goblin did a whole plushie Kickstarter, and so I asked them how they did it.
Yeah.
So then I just used the same people, and then it worked out great. And there was the same company that Tentacle Kitty used too. So there's only so many people in this industry. So that's how you do it. There's only so many printers, and now some things there's a lot of like dice. Well, that's endless. There's a lot of, although there's not really. There's a couple big dice manufacturers, but like there's a lot of dice out there. So dice are pretty easy. Dice bags. What will usually happen for a dice bag, I'm gonna tell you a secret, is that like any dice case you see, there will be 50,000 people in China that offer that same exact case. I don't know where it's coming from, but they're all offering the same one because there's someone else who's making them, and then there's that's how many middlemen there are. It's like someone else is making them, and then all these companies in China are buying it, and then they're reselling it to people like us, and then resell it again. Because I've even had people say, "Hey, that dice case is this one I see on Amazon," and I'm like, "Yeah," because someone else just bought it. It's like unless you're making something super custom, it's probably going to be found somewhere else because everyone buys the same things from everybody. In that case, that's personal service. And what I'll usually do is if I find that same dice case, I'll write to like the 5 companies that I see that are offering it and see who gets back to me and who's the nicest and who's the most, who's the best pricing and the best could speak English and, seems to know what they're doing and is really, quick at writing back. And then that's the person I work with. So, I mean, that's something else. I always go to like 3 or 4 people. I never try to just do one. So.
Yeah, like getting quotes basically, so you get a good feeling and a good price. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So we touched on a little bit the idea of connections and networking, and I think that's actually a huge, massive point. Like when I think about everything that I've done for the Kickstarters that my team and I have done, almost none of it would have been possible if I hadn't have met certain people who pointed me in the right direction, right? To publishers, to people who can do interior layout and design, to artists, to whatever need I had for the project, things that I couldn't do myself, and it took other people being able to do it. I through connections and networking, I got pointed in their directions, right? So, for instance, one of the things that I did before I did my first Kickstarter was that I would go to conventions and I would just wander to different vendors and I would just talk to them. Like there was one vendor that I saw dice bags at, and so I started talking to her, and I was like, "Hey, dice bags, cool. I might be doing a Kickstarter. Can you make mass orders of these? Yeah, I can do this, this, and this, and this." And then you learn, oh, okay, cool. And then she introduced me to another guy who does interior layout and design. And that same guy now does the layout for Layer Magazine for us. And then but the point is that connections and networking is super valuable, and just meeting other people that have done it before, that have experience in it, that can point you in the right direction, connect you with other people that will help you out. Because if I had never done any networking and stuff like that, like I wouldn't have been able to do my first Kickstarter. I would have had no idea of where to go. So just meeting other people and talking to people, and then getting information and stuff. And like the cool thing is that a lot of the people that I meet in like the tabletop RPG industry and stuff, is almost everybody I talk to is happy to help almost always, and they'll share information, or they'll point you in the right direction and stuff like that. You just have to ask, I'm sure there are some people that are less helpful, but I've always had really good experience just asking people, and then, everything just goes from there. So.
So is there any topic, any questions people have? I've not been watching the chat. I don't know if people actually have questions.
I've been looking at it, but there haven't been a ton of questions.
Yeah,
You're
we have a very niche topic today, so I think we have a small stream today, super niche.
Great, thanks for inviting us on the super niche topic. It's like, let's find the most obscure thing. How you can do your Kickstarter successfully on January 3rd. There you go. That's the topic I like.
Well, the interesting thing is that, like, sure, there maybe aren't a whole lot of people that are like interested in it, but it's not delivering value, and I'm sure there's information that's going to help some people.
Someone out there is going to be like, thank you.
It's going to help.
I mean, this is good stuff. It's going to be very niche, but people might be interested in knowing how the sausage is made. And it's the answer is, it is a nightmare. So there you go.
It's very challenging, and you're going to be lost the first time you do it, and it's going to be overwhelming, and then you slowly get better. But even the third time, now we're doing it for the third time, there are things where it's just guesswork, and we're just doing the best we can, So welcome to the party.
Welcome to the party, pal. So we got 15 minutes. Got to do more fun stuff.
Well, we can wrap it up. We don't have to go 15 minutes.
No, please. Let's talk about.
Well, let's talk about anything else then. If we feel
well, did you finish all your books? Like, you have 3 books. Are those done?
Yeah. Well, yes.
Mostly done. Done enough.
So we had 3 books. The actual writing is all done for all 3 of them. One of them has been completely laid out and is ready to go to the printer. You got to send it to them to the printer first so they can like do their proof, but it's basically ready. They almost never have any updates. And then the other book is, I think we had a first draft of the layout. I think Zach can correct me if I'm wrong. He says, I'm getting the layout of the last 2 books finalized this week and next week. Okay, so the last 2 books should be done this week and next week. So that means that our interior layout and design will be done for all 3 books prior to the launch of the Kickstarter, which is our goal. We want to have all the interior layout done. So basically, once the Kickstarter will launch, it'll close the very first week of September, and then within a couple of weeks after it closes, we'll be able to fulfill the PDFs. The PDFs will go out like immediately, pretty much. So as soon as it closes and Kickstarter processes payments, then we'll be able to like send out the PDFs, like boom. Actually, you know what? I think we have to do the surveys first. We have to do the backer kit surveys, but that doesn't usually take too long, and then we can start fulfilling right away.
That's correct.
Yeah,
you have to. Yes, because I did the same thing. You see, Ian World is crazy because Ian World The second the Kickstarter ends, they
Uh-huh.
send out the PDFs,
I'm not doing that.
whether or not you paid. I was like, dude, that is risky.
Not doing it. No way, because there's a lot of people that their pledges don't process.
Way. No
Yeah.
way. I'm
Uh,
like, dude, you're nuts. I would
Nope.
never do that.
No. I'm gonna wait until their pledges process and make sure it's straight, and then there's gonna be a backer kit survey that's got to go out.
Yeah. Yeah, I do
you
the same.
know.
I'm going to do the same thing. Basically, well, for us, you have to choose if you want Pathfinder 5e, and then as soon as it goes out and you finish it, you get the PDFs.
Mhm.
So you just have to fill
Yeah.
out the survey.
Yep.
Also, then I like that because then it's not on me. It's like, hey, man.
Yeah.
It's like you got to, and the print books aren't going to be ready for several months anyhow. So you can get the PDFs right away, and then you don't have to worry about them all getting everything done by print. Because in a
Right.
weird way, having it done so quick will mess up your print because you want everyone to have a good couple months because it takes forever for people to fill out their information as to get all the information ready for print. Because I mean, I have people, I swear to God, that other Kickstarter that I had 2 years ago, I had 2 people submit their backer kit. I have 74 people who still have not answered it.
Oh, dude, there's always backers every time that don't answer it. Like,
I know, it's amazing.
Yeah,
And
once
I'm
I
just
get to,
and they never get
no,
their pledge.
No,
they never get it.
That's their problem. They didn't. I
know.
I put out updates. A lot of times what I do even is when I'm right toward the end of it and it's your last chance, I will literally grab their email addresses and I will send them emails. Not even an update or a message. I will literally email them and say, hey, if you don't fill it out, you're not getting your stuff. And they still nothing. So at that point, it's like, I have done everything I can and you just don't care enough, or you've forgotten or something, or they probably back like 50 projects a year and they forget about half of them or something. I don't know. But yeah, there's only so much you can do. Like I always have about 50 backers that just never respond. And all right, you don't get your stuff. Like I can't help you. But that's a really good point. Like we have to get, before you can even ship the books, you have to give them time to fulfill their information and stuff, like their shipment information, and process their shipping, the shipping cost payments and stuff like that. So that's a good point. So even if you did get the books printed right away, you'd be in a holding pattern until you can get them to do their surveys and stuff. So that's a really good point. Yeah. So
Well, let's talk real quick. We got 10 minutes. 10 minutes. What's going on in Lair Magazine? I don't understand how you guys do. I mean, I'm happy that I get two ancestries done a month. I don't know how you do like 60 pages of adventures.
Because we're awesome, man.
It's nuts.
Well, we have 2 full-time team members, right? And then me, I work every single day of the week, usually 10 hours a day or something. So I'm always working. I bet Zach is probably working a whole lot too. And I know Sunny works a lot. So we just work a lot. We also have freelancers that write for us as well. And we have cartographers that make the maps for us. So there are people also that are writing this stuff, but I don't know, like it takes time to produce the content, but at the same time, like I can write an adventure in 8 to 10 hours. I know Zach can write an adventure in 8 to 10 hours. So, and that's from design to fully written. So I have read aloud text. I have everything, right? In about 8 to 10 hours. And for Zach and I are really good writers too. So it's well written. So when our editor gets her hands on it and she goes through it, like she makes edits and stuff, but it's pretty clean, and then we have Sunny does final reviews on stuff as well. But if you look at the content, you usually have like 3 adventures, you have monsters, and then you have 2 more resources. We generally have 6 things per issue. So, if you can write, the adventures take you 3 days to write. Each of the resources, just being generous, takes you a day to write. So you have 6 days of writing time, right? If you just pure by hours, you have about 6 days of writing time to get an entire issue done, And obviously it's got to go through editing. There's a final review process where we check it for like, different things. And then it's got to go to layout, right? And layout takes like a week or 2, So, and then we work about 3 to 4 months in advance. So like September is about to go to layout right now, but it was written and done like a month ago, perhaps. And we're already working on. I think Sunny is probably contracting out or commissioning out November's content or maybe December's content at this point. So you work in advance, and you have a solid system too. There's a system and a process for how everything works, so that it's just kind of you're just working the system. It's a system that you developed over time, but you just work the system. Stuff gets commissioned. You have so much time to write it. I have deadlines when I have to write my stuff. So Sunny is our project manager among other things, and so she treats me like any other freelancer. Like, Luke, get your stuff by this date, turn it in, so that it has enough time to go through the process. There's a game design review that things go through. So we just have a really tight system that things go through to make sure that everything stays on track, and then we do the Kickstarters and stuff too, So it's system and process is what helps us in part to do everything that we do, and just a lot of time working on it as well. So, and we have like talented writers, that know what they're doing and can do it consistently and well, I would say, and when sometimes you have writers that turn in less than stellar pieces that got to be reworked too. So that's a thing, and that's kind of accounted for in the process. And Zach, who's on stream, does a lot of that rework when it needs to happen. So, yeah, there have been times that we'll get pieces turned into us that need to be almost completely rewritten. We're almost starting from zero, from scratch. And at that point, it's interesting because I don't know how you guys handle this, but sometimes we get pieces turned into us that, like, we'll look at it and we'll be like, we can't publish this. Like, we have to rewrite almost the entire thing. So we can send it back to the freelancer for them to rework on it and wait a week or two, or we can just redo it ourselves. So usually a lot of times what we do is we just redo it ourselves. The freelancer still gets paid, but we can't really use what they gave us. And so we end up publishing something that's almost completely redone.
At Roll for Combat, we generally don't have that happen due to the fact that we use like very experienced freelancers and we assign projects that we're pretty confident they can do. But when I was at Paizo, there were definitely times that there were just things that got turned in, especially in Pathfinder First Edition, where it was harder to design something that didn't have mechanical issues when it came to like rules design, where I just had to rewrite a whole bunch of it. And you always, like, you could spend a huge amount of time asking for a rewrite and giving very specific instructions and hope that it comes back okay the second time. But I found it's generally easier to just do it completely from scratch. It takes less time and you will get a better results. And then just like if that freelancer, and you pay the freelancer because they did what you asked them to do, even if it wasn't something that you could use or of the quality that you want, but you keep that in mind. And you when you're considering whether to use that freelancer in the future.
Yeah, you always got to pay them. You have to pay them. Because even if you contracted them for it, even if they turned in something that you cannot use, you have to pay them.
If they fulfilled the contract, and they did what you asked them to do, even if it's bad, then you need to pay them because they fulfilled the contract. Right. Unless it was something that clearly violated it. Like, it's like they seem to have used ChatGPT in a way that violates not only your contract with them, but also ChatGPT's terms of service.
Sure.
And they misrepresented it as their own work, or they did give you 1,000 words like you asked for, but all of the 1,000 words were like song lyrics, and you wanted an adventure that was 1,000 words. Like, there's some ridiculous situations where maybe like they violated the contract, but that I've never seen that. Right. I've seen things that are bad enough you have to rewrite them, but you pay them because they still did what you asked.
Right. You because the last thing you want as a company is a reputation of not paying people that do work for you. because once that happens and that starts to get around, then nobody wants to work for you and you have a bad rep. And so you definitely want to
Plus, you just want to follow your promises. Just like if you said that's what you were going to do, then that's what you should do, and people will know to trust you. So
that's true.
Handle that promptly. And the professional thing to do is just like, if it was really bad and you have expectation that that's what you're going to get from that freelancer in the future, don't use them. But they made the money this time. You took a risk, and you don't do that again. Find people that you take a risk on who do succeed for you, and help build them up and use them more.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we used to have a very large pool of freelancers, and then it got reduced down, and then we had a preferred list, and you definitely learn from them, and we've also done, when we take on a new freelancer, for instance, we'll give them an easier project, right? We won't give them an adventure out of the gate. We'll give them like, make some NPCs, those are pretty easy, or make something else that we determine is easy, and or not as big of a challenge, I would say. And then as you gauge their quality of work on the smaller things, then you maybe give them something else. Like, okay, well, you did well on that. Let's try some puzzles, see if that's up your alley or not, And you also learn what people are good at and what they're not good at. Like we have some people who are great at puzzles, but you should never pay me to write a puzzle for you. I don't think, but adventures I can do, and some of our writers can't do adventures, but others are good at it, so you learn as well. Yeah.
So when do you get in for Gen Con?
Wednesday night. But we're not gonna, like, Dungeon Coach and I are gonna be he's gonna be in Michigan, and so we're gonna drive down there Wednesday night. But we're not gonna be doing anything Wednesday night.
No, I'm coming in Wednesday early.
I don't think so. Actually, no, I think we are. I think we have. Actually, I think we're gonna be playing a game on Wednesday night. I think we are actually playing a game on Wednesday night.
Okay. I have no plans on Wednesday yet. Well, I'm going to where am I going? Where am I going, Mark?
On Wednesday, you're going to St. Elmo's Steakhouse.
St. Elmo's Steakhouse. I can remember. It's like thinking Saint Elsewhere.
You're going there with Professor Dungeon Master
and
Professor Dungeon Master's family and Baron
people,
Rob, and you're going to go to St. Elmo's, and you're going to get the shrimp cocktail at St. Elmo's, because you don't drink other cocktails. You normally drink beer there, but shrimp cocktails
and beer
are the one cocktail that you do go for.
I'm not even going to ask how Mark knows your personal itinerary for that.
Because we just went through this in our previous.
Stevens told us me this, or said this on streams that I've been on
5 times,
3 to 5 times at this point. So I'm all set.
Because this is a common topic. Well, because people are interested. But then because Wednesday's the weird. Wednesday's the weird day, because Wednesday is the sort of what do you do day, because nothing's open. So you got to make your own plans. And I find if you don't make plans, then you're going to end up being bored and doing nothing. So you got to be active on a Wednesday.
I will never be bored at a hotel room. Just relaxing and air conditioning and getting away from all of the work that surrounds me. Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh.
My God, are you kidding? A hotel room is like my nightmare. It's like such a.
Oh, dude, that's. My wife and I, when we go on vacations, that's part of the appeal of the vacation. It's just being able to relax in a hotel room.
We try to stay in little as possible in the hotel room.
Oh, man. Well, dude, you're paying like hundreds of dollars for a hotel room. My theory is enjoy it.
Well, we have
My family has the Steven Glicker style of always being out and doing a million things on vacation.
Yeah, we're very busy.
I mean, don't get me wrong. We don't stay in the room the whole day. But there's a few hours every day where you're just relaxing in the room.
Well, right. I was going to say, this is our like usually this is what ends up happening. We'll go around, do stuff. We come back, we change, we go to dinner, we come back, and then we're done. And then we all literally, it's the same thing. It's so stupid. For some reason, the only thing that's on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is Shark Tank. So for whatever reason, whenever we go on vacation, this is with my family, with me, I watch different stuff. We'll all be in the room together, me and my wife and my kids, and we'll turn on Shark Tank and just watch one episode after another, and we're just all watching. And for like 10 years now, it's the same freaking thing every single time.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the hotel, because some hotels have better cable programming than others. But
Shark Tank's always on.
Yeah,
Because it's on basic cable. So it's
I've
crazy.
been in places where I don't know. I never look for Shark Tank, but the one I try to
Oh,
find is like The Office or something. If I can find a channel that just plays The
yeah, well.
Office, I'm happy.
People go to bed, and then I usually stay up and play video games
Yeah.
on the Switch, or now I have a Steam Deck. Actually, the problem is, this is a real problem, is Baldur's Gate 3 comes out next Friday.
Well, that's a
So I'm
problem.
gonna be behind.
But Baldur's Gate 3 has been out for a long time, hasn't it?
No. It's dude. It's the early version is like this big. It's like a grain of rice compared to the final version. There's no point in playing. You're
Okay.
right though, but they completely rewrote the game. Like it's
Okay.
it's completely redone.
Now,
from
is Baldur's
scratch.
Gate 3 similar to the first two at all? Or is it a different, like.
No, it's different It's completely different. I mean, the only thing that's similar is the title and some of the characters, like
Okay.
Minsk and Boo come back. Or Minsk, no one's seen Boo, but Minsk
Is it
comes
still
back.
designed as like turn-based combat?
It's semi-turn based. It's by Larian Studios, and Larian is I consider the best overhead TT, like 2.5D. It's called 2.5D studio
Okay.
for multiplayer RPGs in the world. Like they're the masters.
Okay.
And their games, when they had a team of 50, where I thought were some of the best games ever made in history.
Yeah.
They had a team of 400, 6 years and 3 years of playtest. It has 174 hours of cutscenes. That is twice the length of Game of Thrones, the entire series. They asked how many endings are there? They said 17,000 endings.
Jeez.
17,000. And then they
Wow.
said, well, how many of them are completely unique? And they're like, oh, like the teens. Or like the low to double digits. So that means this is one of these games you can play it, and there's 7 protagonists, each with their own stories. You can replay this thing 7 times, and it's completely different. And they did things like, oh, you need to go from here to the castle. Well, here's 3 ways you can get there. And all of them are completely unique take like 10 hours each.
So like almost infinite replayability is the idea.
It's yes, and when you do it, you don't go to the other ones. Like that's it. Like you did that path.
Yeah.
And they did this with they do this a lot with their other games. They were doing this.
So it's not like Skyrim where if you skip that side quest, you can come back later.
I'm guessing that low
It's linear.
teens number of endings is like the real number
Yeah,
of
but
different
that's still
endings
a
because
lot.
if
That's
you
still a
if
lot.
you're gonna to crunch numbers to be like their variations, so
Oh, yeah.
there's 17,000 endings, then by the same bent,
I
you could try
understand,
to
but-
claim that like a Fire Emblem game has hundreds of thousands
It
of
does
endings
have-
because
well,
of the fact that
no, they're talking about the outcome.
person X and person Y being paired up together at the end of the Fire Emblem game gives you a
watch the
one
interview.
ending card for them where
No,
it's like
they
this person married that person and they always supported them in their goal of thing
That's not
X.
what they're talking about. If you watch the review, there's one woman who's in charge of the ending, and they spent 6 months on working on just the ending, and they went through it. It's not that. If you include that, it's infinite. If you're like all those little things, they're saying actual and outcome. Like there's 17,000 various outcomes in endings, and not in like you have this person living and that's considered one ending. There's actually that.
Well, no, but like in Fire Emblem, it's not just that person was living.
I
There's like a
understand.
whole card where they
played
put
all
in
Fire
3 to
Emblems.
4 sentences to be like these two people
Till you
working
play-
together
Dude,
cause
I get it.
their duchy to be
I get it.
successful.
I get it, but I will tell you, if you haven't played a Larian game before, you don't understand. There's 2 million, I think it's 2.1 million words of spoken dialogue. That's 2.1 million words. I think they have like 10,000 actors. It's beyond ridiculous. It's insanely ridiculous.
Well, that's certainly a lot. That's like that's over 3 War and Pieces.
That's
and
what
spoken. So if you get the audiobook for
that's
War and Peace,
174 hours of just cutscenes.
yeah,
I was like,
if you get the audiobook for
insane.
War and Peace, which I don't know if there is one, and you listen to it 3 times, it won't be as much time as if you listen to everything that could be
I know.
spoken in
But
Baldur's Gate 3.
Those cutscenes you're probably not going to experience all the cutscenes in one playthrough.
No. It's
right?
impossible. They actually
Yeah.
said that you should be able to play this multiple times and have completely different experiences. And as someone who's played all their games,
Mhm.
and this is when they had 50 people working on it,
Yeah.
it was like that for just the Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2,
Okay.
which were freaking these are fantastic games. And I'll tell you the best part, which is good and bad, is the combat system is two things. First, it's reactionary. So like if you spill oil and you do a fireball, everything's on fire.
Mhm.
If you like everything, like it's very tricky. So the ground and your environment, Mark, you'd like this. The environment responds to attacks and spells.
So it's basically Divinity in the sense that you put things onto the field and then use them in your next effect.
Yeah. And it makes combat very complex and very,
Mhm.
very deadly because you got to be very careful where you're standing and what you're
That
doing.
feels very different from the normal 5e rule set.
Well,
and more similar to
that's
Divinity.
That's a Larian staple. They do it in all their Divinity games. The other thing is, keep in mind, it's a hybrid version of 5e. Keep that in mind. The other thing,
Sure, but it has to be pretty hybrid before that starts becoming a major part of it. Which is like that's totally not a bad thing, right? Because doing 5e,
you could turn that off. You could turn that off.
Doing 5e faithfully might not be as good of a computer gaming experience as doing something that has a lot more stuff.
Their games are hard as hell. Which I like because like a lot of these games you just cruise through, like even the basic level, like you are getting like you're like la da da da, you're all dead. I was like, holy crap!
No, I was
like, you gotta like really pay attention.
I played a little bit of Divinity Original Sin 2, and not like maybe 10 hours, maybe. You know, and I got to one fight toward the very beginning of the game, and I'm like, oh, we gotta fight this guy. Just mopped us up. Totally mopped us up. And actually after that battle, I was just like, I walked away and I haven't played that game since.
Well, that's the thing. Like you can, I think they got more sensitive to that because Mark, you would love it because the math is tight. The math is tight. Like you do feel and get better. It's one of these games where as you play it, you get better with your spells. You get better with your tactics. And like what would killed you before in 10 hours, 50 hours in, you'll destroy them because you got really good at the game.
Yeah, like Linda, I know, beat Divinity Original Sin 1 on the hardest difficulty mode without... on the mode where it's like if your characters die, it's like honor mode, then you have to restart the entire game.
That's
which only 0.7% of people have done, apparently. And she did it very easily. Because she had these very heavy boxes that she dropped on enemies using telekinesis.
Yes.
And once she learned how to do that, it was able to kill. It was able to kill the enemies very easily.
What was she doing?
Because you said the math is balanced, but there were obviously some parts of the math that weren't.
Wait,
well,
I think
that is the part she found.
Hold on, Mark, repeat yourself. What was she doing to beat them?
Well, so basically you can use telekinesis to move objects around and drop them on enemies. Combat. And the damage is based on how heavy the object you take is. So she maxed out her telekinesis so she could get a very heavy object. And then she filled crates full of very heavy things, which didn't have high volume, so that she, or whatever, maybe there's no volume limit. I don't know. I didn't play it. She did. So that she filled the crate with so many things in it that its weight was so high that when she threw it at the enemies, they would take a lot of damage. Now, that's not enough to kill like the final boss. You need to do it like 3 times to kill the final boss, but it is enough to kill most of the things in Divinity Original Sin.
So like that is a loophole that if I were at the table, I would immediately be like, guys, time out. We're going to talk about this because this isn't happening.
Yeah, probably. But in Divinity Original Sin, it's just a thing you can do. And if you're going to try to beat it on honor mode, the mode that is tons harder than the one that you played, and if you lose once, they delete your save, and then you're done. then you're probably gonna want to use every last dirty trick
that's
in your book if
fair.
you want to get through it, because they've got a lot of instant kills and other things like that, according to Linda. She played it with her brother, so I didn't play it, but there's a lot of dirty tricks that the developers will use on you that it's fine, it's reasonable. You load your save, you deal with it the next time. But if you're in the mode where you can't load your save and all your progress is done, you need to fight fire with fire. And that's when she used the throwing heavy boxes strategy.
Well, I will say in Divinity Original Sin 1, you can pick up anything. Anyone can do any of that, and that's true. I didn't see that in Baldur's Gate 3.
They probably got rid of it. I bet it's not even in Divinity Original Sin 2.
I don't know if it is, but but they did say the tactician mode is death, which is the hard, super hard mode. I will be interested because I've talked about this guy before. I'm fascinated because I don't even know. I can't understand how this is humanly possible. It's Morstrom Gaming or Morstrom. I don't know. It's like a weird made up word. He plays every single game on his channel to 100%. 100% achievements. Okay. And then he reviews it. And this guy comes out with a video every single day. Every single day. I looked at his Steam profile is public. He did 100% review of Jagged Alliance 3, which came out 2 weeks ago. He has 99 hours on the game at 100%.
Jeez.
And I was like, dude, there's not that many. Like, how is this? You're coming out with a video every single day. He has 99 hours in a week and a half. Like, how is this humanly possible?
No sleep.
No.
I'm trying. He has a kid. He has a baby.
It's humanly possible. You have multiple humans that do it as a team.
That's the only thing I can think of. Is like, I'm not saying this guy's cheating, but there's no way. I don't know. But if you look at his Steam profile, it is.
Maybe he left the game running while he was asleep.
No,
but it doesn't matter. He still is 100%.
He has a team doing it.
It says it. Well, his one that he did the most of, and where his channel blew up because he did Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, which is his favorite game, and he got 100%. It took him over 400 hours to get 100% on Wrath of the Righteous.
He has a team. He's not doing a video release every day.
Every
100% achievement. No.
Day,
he has
including Sunday.
He has a team. If something doesn't add up, it's because it doesn't add up. Like the most logical solution, the most logical explanation, the most obvious explanation is usually the explanation.
I'm going to link his Steam pro. When you see this,
we got to wrap up, guys. I got.
Yeah, it's past 3 hours, Steven.
I gotta pee.
Now, I know it'd
3 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, we're wrapping up.
All right.
So you guys can stay on the Zoom for a second if you would. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're done. I'm closing this out. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful evening. I gotta find the buttons. I always have a hard time finding the buttons. All right, stopping, ending stream.